This is Jocko Podcast number 292 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Good evening, Echo.
Good evening.
August 2nd, 2006 was the worst day of my life. Ryan Job had been gravely wounded by a single enemy round that hit his weapon as he looked down its sights and then ripped into his face, rendering him blind and critically injured. And then soon after Ryan was wounded, Mark Lee, who had stepped into the enemy line of fire to engage the enemy and protect his teammates while assaulting a building, was shot and killed. Mark was a larger-than-life character in every aspect. Smart, athletic, charismatic, charming, talented, tough, and also hilarious and faithful and loyal and obviously brave. Now he was gone. And in Task Unit Bruiser, we closed ranks to get through it. We celebrated his life. We mourned his loss. And then we loaded him on his last flight home. His angel flight. And we got support from our chain of command, from my commanding officer at SEAL Team 3, our Command Master Chief, the Operations Master Chief, and the rest of SEAL Team 3 backed us up and assisted us as we worked through this devastation. But it didn't stop there. I got a call in my Tactical Operations Center. It was from Admiral Joe Maguire, the senior SEAL officer in charge of all of naval special warfare, in charge of the SEAL teams, in charge of the boat teams, in charge of the training center, in charge of everything. And I had previously worked for him directly for 13 months as his aide de camp, and I knew how busy he was, and I knew what his daily schedule was like, and I knew the demands that were upon him. But I also knew that he cared. He cared deeply about the SEAL teams. He cared about his SEALs. And he cared about me. And he called to check in with me and to check on me. And when he called, he told me that he was reviewing the Silver Star that I had submitted for Mark, and he was about to send it directly to the Chief of Naval Operations for a signature based on my recommendation. He told me that he was sorry for our loss. And he assured me that he would take care of Mark's family. He also told me that we were doing the right thing. And to keep doing it, to keep taking the fight to the enemy, to keep eliminating enemy fighters, to keep protecting the local populace, to keep the pressure on. Because the war wasn't over. And the enemy wasn't going to stand down. We still had work to do. Lots of it. And he knew that. And so did I. And that meant a lot. To know that the Admiral in charge of all the SEALs was there for us, was there for Mark, was there for Mark's family. About 3 months later, October 21st, 2006, my plane landed at Naval Air Station North Island with the last members of Task Unit Bruiser to come home. And Admiral Maguire was there to welcome us home, to be sure that we were okay, because he cared about his SEALs. He cared about his troops. And that meant a lot. And soon I was hugging my wife and kids on the tarmac. But even as I embraced my family, I knew I hadn't brought all my men home. And that burden will always be present. But it helped to know that leaders like Admiral Maguire were there. We're there to help shoulder that burden, to support us, and to take care of the families of our fallen. And it's an honor tonight to have Admiral Joseph Maguire here with us to share some of his experiences and lessons learned from his 36 years of military service and his experiences in the civilian sector. Admiral, thank you for coming by.
Jocko, it's an honor to be with you. It really is. It's been entirely too long since you and I have been together. We've been through an awful lot together, but it's an honor to be with you and an absolute honor to be with you on this podcast. So thank you so much for those kind words, and thank you for the warm welcome.
Well, I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more, but to start off with, let's start at the beginning, which I believe is in Brooklyn. That's where you were born, right?
You got a problem with that? No, Jocko, forget about it. That's where I'm from. Yeah, America's fourth largest city, 4 million people. I was a street rat. Grew up in New York City, and people don't understand that actually Brooklyn is on Long Island. So I spent my time in the ocean. I started surfing when I was 16 with the money that I bought my first surfboard with the money I got from shoveling snow.
And that's pre-wetsuits, or at least pre-good wetsuits.
Well, they were loose, But I'll tell you this, though, Jocko, when I went to, Buds and they, folks out there, I'm sure you know this from listening to Jocko's podcast, but, when you show up, they shave your head completely bald. And when I had my head shaved by the instructors, all of a sudden they were calling each other over to take a look at my skull, because it's clearly a city kid. I had 3 concussions, but no. But between growing up in Brooklyn and going to Catholic school, the SEAL instructors were easy. Absolutely nothing to do with that. But yeah.
What'd your parents do?
Well, my dad was a World War II veteran, and
what did he do in World War II?
He was military police. So my father was in Patton's Third Army, which till the day he died was the proudest thing he ever did in his life. And but war was different back then. That my father was there, but everybody was there. My uncles were there, flight surgeons, and they went to war together. He spent he actually joined the Army in 1940 before the war started. And came home from Europe after being deployed for 4 years, in end of July, and married my mother a week and a half later. They've been engaged. And on the 15th of August, he was shipping out to the Pacific for the invasion of Japan. So fortunately, he didn't have to go and do that. But my father then joined the reserves after that, and he spent 30 years in the United States military. And my brother Ben spent 26 years in the Navy as a supply corps officer. He retired. And my other brother, Bob, was an enlisted guy for 6 years as well. And when I took my uniform off in July of 2010, it was the first time in 70 years that an immediate member of my family was not wearing the cloth of the nation. So then I could say we haven't won them all, but the Maguires were integral in winning the Cold War. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So, yeah.
So you're going up to high school. What did you play any other sports besides surfing?
No, I swam. Yeah, no, I was a swimmer, and it's one of those things. Not so much in high school, but I would say if it wasn't for swimming, I never would have gotten a bachelor's degree. So the season would go in the fall into the winter, and I would be on the dean's list while I was swimming and disciplined. Well, you know about discipline. You teach you the whole time. But once the swimming season took a lapse, so did I. And I just kind of got by in the spring semester. But nope, I swam for my college. I was the captain of the college team, and I also swam for the New York Athletic Club. And be honest with you, I thought, like most New Yorkers, that I was going to just live and die in New York City. So being a member of the New York Athletic Club, we were all on scholarship. And the New York Athletic Club, they just took the top swimmers from all of the colleges and put us together after the college season. And back then it was AAU. And we'd have a swimming practice at the New York Athletic Club. We'd have to go in coat and tie to practice. But it was right next to Central Park South. But we had a stipend, credit card for X amount of dollars a month. So after swimming practice, we went down to the bar.
To refuel.
Oh, it is. So over the course of a couple of years for the New York Athletic Club, I'm graduating from college, and there were a couple of businessmen that I knew there, and they said, "Joe, we want to take you to dinner." Okay. So we're at dinner in one of the steakhouses in Manhattan, and my friend made the pitch. He said, "We want you to come into the advertising firm." Well, guys, I'm not even a business major. I said, "What is it that you want me to do?" "Joe, all we want you to do is entertain the clients, and we'll teach you the business." I could do that, man. So, I'm getting ready to be a madman, and I'm going into Madison Avenue. My brother is...
What year is this?
This is 1974.
So when you were growing up, I mean, Vietnam is going on.
My brothers served Vietnam. Yeah, both my brothers, and obviously, I had to make that decision: either graduate from college or go into Vietnam as an enlisted guy. But my father, being a colonel, and my other just said, "Look, not that this." I mean, you were an enlisted man yourself. That's the hardest part. But in Vietnam, it's the NCOs that are the military, and it's the NCOs that do the fighting and dying. But my father encouraged me to finish college and then go. If you really want to go into the service, then go in with your college degree. So I graduated in 1974, but the war was over by then. Mm-hmm. And so my brother, from my father, I heard that I was going to go into Madison Avenue. So he was stationed here in San Diego on the USS Ranger and flew to New York City and arranged for an officer candidate school test for me. And I did not participate in this decision. So I was sitting at the kitchen table, and my father goes, "Ben, what do you want to tell your brother?" "You're going to take the test for officer candidate school tomorrow." He's 5 years older. My father looking at me. Okay, So, so I went down there. Now, keep in mind, I'm swimming. I got hair down to my shoulders back then. It's all bleach blonde from the chlorine. And so I go down, and I take the test, which are like the SATs. And I'm very deliberate, actually slow. There were a lot of big words that I had to sound out in the test, And so you turn the paper in. And they graded the paper and debriefed the individual based on, and I was one of the very last ones to finish. And it was a crummy office there in Manhattan. It was downtown Manhattan, right by City Hall. And all they had was little crummy office dividers that, it's like 18 inches below, and it only goes up to about 4.5 feet. And they got folding chairs on the other side, and you can hear everything on the other side. So they're bringing them in, and the guy sits down. He says, "Well, Mr. Smith, you could take the test again next year." "Oh, gee, Mr. Brown, you could take the test again." So nobody was passing the test. So I'm there. I said to my brother, I don't think I passed. He said, "Well, we'll see." So I go in and I sit down, and the recruiters go, "So, Joe, you want to join the Navy?" "No, man, I just took the test." My brother smacks me in the head. He goes, "You're joining the Navy." Okay. And the recruiters are looking at me like, "What do you want to do?" Now, my brother was a supply corps officer. He wants to be a supply corps officer. So, yeah, that's what I want to do. So they look at the score and they look at my brother. This is my brother's proudest moment. They go, your little brother didn't score high enough. He can't be a supply corps officer. So, and I said, well, what do you want to do? I mean, this has only been about 15 hours. So I got the wheels turning. And now, back then, we were doing the Apollo recoveries. And the astronauts would land in the water, and sometimes the recovery carrier wasn't there. They had these B-roll human interest stories. So recently, there was a human interest story about the recovery, and there were 2 SEALs, and who were on the Olympic team. Now, I was not on the Olympic team, not at that caliber, but because they were, I knew of them. And one was in SEAL Team 1, and one was in UDT 13, and they did a human interest story on the SEALs. And now, keep in mind, Jocko, this is 1974. We have less than 800 people in the community. Nobody knows what it is. And they said, so what do you want to do? You know what I want to do? I want to be in UDT and SEAL team. Give them a hard one, right? So the two of them, I mean, they're just looking like, what? Now, these guys were aviators and surface warfare guys. So they just turned to my brother. They said, well, we'll be back. So now they went back for about 10 minutes. It was probably like, buying a car where I got to go talk to my manager. They come back 10 minutes later. They talk to my brother. And meanwhile, my brother hasn't sat down. He's still standing over me. And I'm sitting in the chair because I was told to sit. Right? And they talk to my brothers first, and they turn to me. They say, well, we're sorry, Joe, but there's no commissioned officers in UDT or SEAL team. And I proceeded to tell him, that's BS, but I didn't say BS, right? And, of course, my brother smacks me in the head again. And he goes, Joe, they wouldn't lie to you. Now, here I'm a civilian, and I'm turning to my brother, and I go, they're recruiters. That's what they do.
And they were lying,
They were lying to me, as you know. So I wound up going to surface warfare, to the USS Coronado, and I spent time on that to become a surface warfare officer before I got to Coronado, California to become a SEAL. And I will tell you this, that the demanding life on board ship, by the time I got to Bud's training, I thought that was good duty. And when guys were quitting, I was putting my arm around them and giving them a counseling session. It's just like, you don't know what it's like out there. Look, we got a mini mart down the street. Life is good.
Did you have to go to so did you go to OCS?
I did.
Is that what you did?
I did, yeah.
And how was that shock and awe experience?
Well, you realize like in the first couple of days that you've been duped. It's 5 o'clock in the morning and they're waking you up and you got to be outside in 5 minutes in your PT gear PTing. Come on, So, no, that was a great experience, actually. And it was the beginning. It was a tremendous maturation start for me to actually join the military, go to OCS, have drill instructors teaching you. They had expectations. They had standards. And then also, you were measured and you had to live up to something. And really, it was transformational for me. And I wound up doing pretty well in OCS and did well on board the ship. And by the time I got to Bud's class 93, we was the usual bit. We started off with 147 guys in the class and finished with 17, and I was standing there. And, be honest with you, Jocko, nobody was more surprised that I wound up being the honor man. Because I told Kathy I was married.
Oh, you were the honor man.
Oh, yeah. But, I told Kathy, we came back from San Clemente. She goes, how you doing? Oh, they're going to catch up to me this week. I know I'm going to get canned this week. You just never know until you graduate. And when they announced who the honor man was, I was just kind of like, it must be some mistake, But, yeah, so that was a great experience. As you know, Buds is a defining thing, and Hell Week is a defining thing for all of us. But the one thing about that is it all starts there. It all shapes it. And, every one of us, whether you are the Admiral with his folks in Ramadi and Fallujah, or the guys in Ramadi and Fallujah, whether you are the guy with stars in his collar or the guys with chevrons on his collar, we all wear the same warfare insignia. There is no difference between a SEAL officer and a SEAL enlisted man as far as what he had to do to earn that. Now, the career is different over the time, but it's one thing that we all understand. It was the crucible. It's a defining thing. and you go through that, and it starts your journey. That doesn't really make you a SEAL. When you get that trident pinned on you, that's your beginning of learning how to really become a SEAL. And it takes, and I'll tell you, till the day I took off my uniform, I learned every single day. And as you know, the saying goes, you've got to earn it every single day.
Was there anything at Buds that was hard for you? Because if you were a collegiate swimmer, the swims must have been like a break for you.
Yeah. Next question.
What about run? Were you a good runner?
Oh no, no. So that's the part that really upset me, Jocko, is that Buds is a running club. It's not a swimming club, But that is what saved me, because I don't think I ever told you this either. But I wound up with a broken leg in third phase, so a severe stress fracture, and. I was not a bad runner. We're up there at third phase. We probably had about 20 guys, 24 guys in the class, and I was up in the top 5 whenever finished time runs, or when you do your run and that's run back to the compound, do you run your own? But I was having a lot of trouble, and I didn't know what it was. By a lot of trouble, I'm 10 minutes behind the class in the class run, but I'm running. And the instructors watch this stuff. So back then we did not have the facilities and the help that our young candidates have. And we had an E6 corpsman, and he told me, he said, I want you to come in. I had to leave the class. Now, we're well into third phase. We hadn't gone to the island yet. But he said, I want you to go across the street and get an X-ray. Yes, instructor. That's always the right answer. So I come hobbling out of the third phase office, and the senior enlisted guy, Senior Chief Johnny Johnson, outside smoking a cigarette like any good SEAL back then. And all of a sudden he says, Mr. Maguire, stop. And when an instructor tells you to stop, you stop. He says, get over here. So I go over to him. He says, where are you going? I said, well, Senior Chief, I'm going across the street for an X-ray. No, you're not. Of course I'm not, Senior Chief. He goes, what's up? I said, well, I got a little trouble. He says, I tell you what, Mr. Mack, you got a broken leg. He said, there's no doubt in my mind, you got a broken leg. So here's the deal. You go back in there, you put your medical record in there. I'm not making any guarantees, but if you're willing to gut it out, we'll see what we can do. Yes, Senior Chief. And so went back in there, and I actually, was able to, I was always behind in the runs, but I was able to hop on the obstacle course and still finish in the top 5 in that, because that's all technique. Mm-hmm. But we used to run, as Jocko, from the compound down to the center beach in Coronado, which is probably a little over a mile.
Something like that.
And then, and then in the water. So I would be the last one in the water by light years, but I would be the first one out of the water. Mm-hmm. So at least the instructors knew that, hey, I'm putting out. But the other thing, I think that they were thoroughly entertained, that they really didn't want me out of the class for that. But the folks who are out there, instructors, are the ones that really, they are the gatekeepers for who's going to wind up going to a SEAL team, and they are instructors for just a limited period of time, and then they go back to the SEAL team, and the young men that they're training are going to become their teammates. So for the most part, they're sizing them up not only to meet the standards, but also to kind of say, is this somebody that I want to be a teammate with? And if I get into the trouble, and I'm on the left, I got one of these guys on my left and my right. And I think that even if I was having a difficult time there, I was most fortunate to have good instructors. And back then, everybody was a Vietnam veteran. Yeah. Everybody had a Silver Star. And I was blessed to have a Medal of Honor recipient as one of my instructors, Mike Thornton, and that helped shape me as well in more ways than one. But these guys had known the crucible of combat, and they were looking at students, and nobody really cared if nobody graduated back then, but they were looking at, can we trust this guy in combat? And I think that was the standard. But I have to say, in retrospect, it wasn't me. It was the instructors that really showed me tremendous kindness. But, it was not easy being able to do the stuff that we needed to do at the end of training.
There was a class, it must have been just before, wasn't it class 85 or 86 where literally no one made it?
That's correct.
What class? Do you know what class number that was?
I don't, but I think you're close. But the other one was Admiral Eric Olson's class. Wound up with 4 people in Hell Week, and the instructors had to help them carry the IBS because 4 guys couldn't carry an IBS, and the instructors made up their mind, we're never going to let.
We're going to keep at least 6.
There's got to be at least 6 guys here to get through Hell Week. But yeah, Eric had 4 guys. When his graduation picture, and one of the students is a foreign student in his class, so 3 Americans and 1 foreign guy. But it was a different time back then. But the instructors had in the back of their belt ball cap, we made them quit. So there were standards, but they pretty much were on their own as far as what they wanted to do. But I'll be honest with you, these are instructors that I had tremendous respect for, and respect for their combat experience, and they were great instructors because they were intense. And if you didn't have the standard, even if you were making the standard, and it was tough to see a classmate go, but in retrospect, they were right. Mm-hmm. This guy would not have fit in to us. But yeah, and then graduating and then off to jump school, which was always
airborne.
Yeah, that's it. 1 week course crammed into 3.
So you hit airborne school. I'm sure it was the challenge to keep I'm sure there's a lot of challenges at airborne school for you. I can imagine the runs were not as challenging as trying to control your mouth talking to the Army folks. No, I got called into the colonel a couple of times. So actually, for those of you out there who've been through Fort Benning, you understand this. The Army's a little bit different than the SEAL teams to some degree, and they'd have an evolution, and then what they would do is they would have the class line up, and you go online and you'd pick up trash, and these guys are walking picking up trash, and the black hats said, "Mr. Maguire, what are you doing? You're supposed to be picking up trash." "I'm not picking up trash." I'm not picking up trash. I'm off to see the colonel. Okay, so I'm at the colonel. I'm standing there. Attention, puts me at parade rest. "What's up?" I said, "Well, Colonel, I'm a commissioned officer in the United States Navy. Did you ever see Bridge on the River Kwai?" "Yeah, what's that got to do with it?" I said, "Do you remember when the colonel wound up in the cooler because they were making his officers work because it was a violation of the Geneva Convention?" And he's looking at me. I said, "So to have your commissioned officers picking up trash, you realize that you've got a violation of the Geneva Convention?" So he threw me out of his office, but me and the other SEAL officers with me did not have to pick up trash. God. Oh, that's insane. All right. So you get done with airborne school, and then it's off to what, UDT 21?
Off to UDT 21. So it was Underwater Demolition Team 21. And but just like in SEAL training, all of the guys there, now there were guys there from the Korean War who just stayed UDT, didn't go to Vietnam. They went to Vietnam as UDT, but there were former SEAL Team 2 guys. So we had SEAL Team 2 and UDT 21, and they went back and forth. But so you wind up getting 5 or 6 jumps at basic airborne. And then we had a jump schedule shortly after I got back to the team from Fort Benning, and we went up to Fort Lee to do because in the teams back then, you get your 10th jump, and you had to buy a keg of beer. So they got the Lieutenant JG, the Nugget there, so they're going to get me 4 jumps today. And so it was an old UH-1 Vietnam single engine, and they take the doors, put them all the way back, and you're sitting there. This is a static line jump, and they take your static line and they hook you into a cable just below the transmission on the helicopter, and you sit with your legs outside the helicopter, and there's just a little tape that goes across you. And you get on board at first, and the aircraft is not doing any turns up. So then the aircraft commander starts doing the turn up, and the helicopter starts racking back and forth as the and all of a sudden I look around. Now these are all senior enlisted guys, and they one by one take their teeth out of their mouth and put it in their pocket for the jump. I was the only one in the stick of 8 that actually had teeth in his mouth when he went out there, and I'm thinking to myself, what did I get into? Is this in a UDT or are they hockey players? I mean, So, well, make a long story short, it was a long day, but I bought a keg of beer at the end of that day.
And then what did you do at UDT 21? What were you doing for deployments? Were there shipboard deployments?
Yeah, there were shipboard deployments. Made quite a few deployments to the Caribbean. Back then we had a much more robust fleet. So we actually made Caribbean deployments, European deployments, Northern European deployments. So I made several Caribbean deployments and South American deployments. But in addition to that, we also had time to be able to go to schools. And, just to some of our CIA schools and these other things in regard to, how to do targeting and really, because it was all explosives. It was underwater demolition, and CIA were really good at their combat demolition, kitchen demolition, and these other things. But I also then, at that point in time, Jocko, with some courses, decided to take some intelligence courses. And just kind of, I think that intel and naval special warfare kind of go hand in glove. So I want to learn as much as I can about the intelligence community while I'm there. But I had an opportunity to, be a department head there as well, and then, be in charge of a UDT platoon, which back then was, 25 men. So it was good. And of course, my chief and my LPO, both of those guys have got Silver Stars. And, school was in session. You're in charge as the officer. There is absolutely no doubt about it. But you better know what you don't know and be willing to listen to those who do. And these guys very lovingly, sincerely, took me under their wing and adopted me. And I'll be honest with you, even back then, Rudy Bosch, who was the Command Master Chief at SEAL Team 2, he became the Command Master Chief in 1962 and left in 1987. Talk about basketball ball hogs, but Rudy. But even if I was in UDT, my LPO and my chiefs, who were SEAL Team 2 guys, that's how I met Rudy. And Rudy and his wife then mentored Kathy and me until, we were close friends until he started suffering from Alzheimer's disease. But it doesn't hurt to be a young officer who wasn't in Vietnam, to have these folks here who take you under their wing and teach you. The best thing that was not necessarily the operational things, but I think the thing that I owe them most for, Jocko, is like at 2:00 in the morning when they put their arm around me, say, "It's time to go home, sir. Time to go back. Thank you." Yes, the New York kicked in then.
And New York comes out around 2:00 in the morning after X number of beers. So you were married to Kathy before you went to Buds.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, people ask, well, where did you honeymoon?
Coronado, California?
Coronado, California. No, so it's kind of interesting that, I was on the ship and we're deployed to the Mediterranean. I held orders to Buds. And I came home, flew in on a MAC flight into Philadelphia. Kathy lived in New Jersey. And I went to see her first. Now, this is a dangerous thing. Clearly, I've been overpaid all my life. And at that point in time, I was making the princely sum of $8,000. But when you transfer a PCS, you're able to take what's called an advance pay, which is sort of an interest-free loan, except you got to pay it back. So I don't know what I got. I probably got $1,000, $1,200 or whatever. So now I'm in New York, walking down Fifth Avenue with my honey, and we walk into Tiffany's, and I say, "Let's get engaged." So she picks out a ring. I get engaged in Tiffany's. We get married 2 weeks later. We go on a short honeymoon to St. Croix, come back, pack up the car, and drive out to SEAL training. And It's kind of a shock when you go off to work one day and you come back after the instructors have shaved your head. What happened to my boy? But I will tell you this. It was it was a different thing back then. People didn't know about SEAL training, but it was helpful to me to be married in that during that time frame. But as I said, later on, years on, when we went through so much stuff, that she'd been there from day one, and she understood the community. She understood how the community was built, and people even today rely heavily on her for that. But it is not something I would recommend for everybody to be honeymooning as you're going through SEAL training. But we did, God bless her. Well, the thing about it is that neither of us had any idea we're getting into, And,
you didn't. You must have known very little about SEAL training back then.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I went through in 1991.
Yeah.
And I had seen one, the Be Someone Special video.
Yeah.
That's it. There was no internet. There was no books talking about it. Now, I mean, there's so much information out there. You can watch all of Bud's, and guys know what the schedule's going to be and all that.
Yeah.
Back then, it was just blind. They just rip the blindfold off you and shave your head. That's it.
Oh, yeah. So fast forward 20 years, and now I'm the commanding officer of the Naval Special Warfare Center of BUDS. So Kathy comes to meet me for lunch. We're going to go out to Coronado and have some lunch. And I'm on the telephone. She comes to the office, and the secretary says, he'll be with you in a few minutes. So she's standing on the balcony overlooking the grinder as the instructors are motivating, that's how we speak, a first phase class, right? And so come out, off we go to lunch. Sitting there at lunch. Now, we've been married 20 years, went through training with me. And she said, I need to ask you a question. Yeah, what, sweetheart? Did you have to do that when you went through training? No. I said, sweetie, even then, they knew 20 years later I was going to be the commanding officer of this place. And of course I did that. She goes, I'm so sorry. Because I'd come home, and she'd go, let's go to dinner. Okay.
Yeah. So how long did you do at UDT 21?
I did, I guess, about 2.5 years, maybe 3 years. And then back then, we were, for the longest period of time, just we got decimated after Vietnam. I mean, not just UDT, but the whole community. So we only
the whole Navy. Isn't it safe to say the whole Navy and the whole military after Vietnam?
Yes, that's true. But then the target was Russia, and we were going to handle Russia with the nuclear triad.
Got it.
Right.
Got it.
And so if you're not part of the nuclear triad, although I was in a nuclear weapons program at UDT, I mean, we had to deliver the B-54 Saddam. We had 3 06s then. That's it. And the three of them got together and decided that we needed to send some junior officers out into the fleet as flag lieutenants. And so now this is always a bad sign when I'm deployed down to the Caribbean, and the XO, Tom Richards, Tom Richards comes down to visit. This is odd that the XO is kind of, so he spent the day with us, doesn't say anything, and we're flying back up to Norfolk on a C9. We've got the whole plane to ourselves, and I'm sitting against the window, and the XO comes and sits next to me for the flight. I mean, look, I'm a popular guy, I know that, but and I figured I knew something was up. He goes, "Hey, Joe, have you ever thought about being a flag lieutenant?" "No, sir." "No, you seriously think about that?" "No, sir." And I tried to be persuasive to him. I said, "Look, I was in the fleet for a couple of years. I'm in UDT right now. I need to get right. After this, I got to go to a SEAL team." He says, "Well, the Commodore wants to see you tomorrow." Right? This was Stormin' Norman Olson, who, God bless him, we just had a memorial service for Norman. And really, he's one of the guys that shaped this. He said, "You're going to be a flag lieutenant. It's as simple as that." "Yes, Commodore." So I wound up going to Japan as a flag lieutenant, and wound up working for the first admiral that made a helicopter pilot that made Admiral, and he made all of the Apollo recoveries. And every day was a space mission for me with this guy here. It had to be exacting. It had to be, And we're driving along one day, and he goes, "I'm going to make you the best flag lieutenant in 7th Fleet, even if it kills you. And I turned to him, I go, sir, you're well on your way. But I will tell you this, you learn, as you know, you learn. And but the interesting thing is now I endeared myself to all of the admirals out there. And we had the Fleet Readiness Board up in Yokosuka, hosted by the 7th Fleet Commander. So there's about 13, 14 admirals there. And at breakfast, they sit there together, and all of us bag carriers, we go off to the side. And as I'm walking by with my tray, the Fleet Commander goes, "Hey, Joe, come join us. It would be an honor." What's wrong with this picture, right? So they went around the table, and they're telling me that, and this was really true at the time, you can't go back to SEAL Team right now. You're a surface warfare officer. You've got tremendous potential. If you go back into the SEAL Teams, you will never, ever, ever get promoted. This was in 1981. And true, at that time, most of the commanding officers of SEAL Teams were lieutenant commanders passed over for commander. We only had a handful of captains, and there was no real career path, for that. But I told them, I said, well, look, I'm going. And the only advice they gave me then, well, go to PG school. Okay, that was a good trade-off. But that was true at that time. And, backing up a little bit about my father being a colonel in the reserves, he said the same thing back then, that, you'll have a couple of good years, but, you'll never be promoted past lieutenant commander. It's as simple as that. And, I went to his grave one time and put my 3-star shoulder boards on his tombstone.
So that's how long are you doing that? How long are you doing that job as the aide, the flag aide?
100 years.
I know the feeling.
No, that was 25 months. But I will tell you. I'll tell you,
man,
Jocko. One of the best things about that, I mean, this is Shirley, is that I was the aide for CTF 76, and a first lieutenant named Joe Dunford was the aide for CTF 79. Oh, wow. And Joe and I spent 25 months together in the Pacific, traveling everywhere together. And then after we both finished that tour, Joe, during the course of our careers, we stayed close. And we'd see each other on deployment. He's a battalion commander. He wound up, being the speechwriter for the commandant and a lot of other jobs that well deserved. But it was actually Joe Dunford and Jim Mattis that asked me to come back into government, and I hate them both for that. But the thing about it is, with both those are two men that I hold in the very highest esteem, and I also figured, well, General Mattis, Secretary Mattis, came back into government, and Joe's been there for 39 years, and I just said to them, well, if you guys are taking one for the team, I'll give it a go. Mm-hmm. We'll see how it goes. But I just could not say no to those two men. Right. But just what an honor. And then to actually get into the administration and be the Director of National Intelligence, sitting at the National Security Council meeting with Joe Dunford to my right, it just, it's a small world, and you just don't know. But yeah.
But you didn't take their advice, and you did go back to the SEAL Team. That was your next tour?
I did. As a matter of fact. And, so the journey continues. So I went into to SEAL Team 2, and at that time, Commander Rick Woolard was the commanding officer of SEAL Team 2. And rightfully so, he wanted to develop an undersea capability. So we wound up, to be honest with you, back then, we were not very good. We had good swimmers. We had good athletes. We had rotten equipment. We didn't have techniques and procedures. We really didn't know what we didn't know. And Rick, through our senior officers and the Chief of Naval Operations, were able to establish a personal exchange program, PEP billet, and bring over a French commando from Commando Hubert. And in my estimation, Commando Hubert are the best combat divers in the world, military combat divers. And Francois was charged with establishing a combat swimmer program that to this day was the most arduous program that I'd ever been through. It had extremely high attrition rate. But not everybody could do it, but not everybody could swim oxygen either. But in addition to that program, then Rick also, looking back on this, it seems hard to believe, get permission to buy foreign sales things. So we were the first ones to get the Draeger, German. And then of course, the Draeger life jacket's French. And there was a prohibition against that because it was buy American, but it was the best technical undersea combat swimmer stuff that we had. And we did extremely hard work up, and I was just most fortunate that, I had a department head tour there, and then a platoon commander. And in October of 1982, we just got fast ropes. So hard to believe. And fast ropes were classified, insertion means. And we got it from the British SAS, used. Spend a night, not a fortune. So we're up at AP Hill, and Rudy Bosch brings the rope up. We got a helicopter, and we're doing. First, we're doing. Rudy is the rappel master. He's the rope master. Talks to us about this, and now I used to be on the ship, as a deck officer, so I know lines and stuff. So I said, "Hey, Rudy, what's the tensile strength on this? How many can hold?" Don't worry about it, sir. I'll hold your whole platoon. Forget it, If that was Rudy, right? So now Rudy at this point, he's probably knocking at the door to 60. So we did a couple of runs, and he's the first one out. And then after about 4 or 5 runs, I just say, "Hey, Master Chief, this isn't too damn hard. We could figure out how to curl a rope and throw it out when the helicopter flares." All right? So he sits this one out. And so my chief, Bud Dennehy, is going to do it. I'm following Bud. Then I've got 4 or 5 knuckleheads, behind me. And we go out, and for some reason or another, Bud, the operative word is fast rope. So he's just kind of going slow, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what was going on. I thought the helicopter was crashing, and I just knew that I was in free fall. And, getting back into Fort Benning, I kind of criticized a little bit there. But the thing that saved me is just going to a good PLF. I put my legs together, I put my arms in, and for one brief second, I avoided the chief below me, and I hit. And for 1 nanosecond, I go, "I'm good." Then I had 5 big frogmen land on top of me. So that broke my back, and that broke my pelvis. So we're all lying there as a bunch of rag dogs, and it's dead silent. I still don't know what happened. So obviously when the rope broke, the helicopter went up because of no longer had that weight, and then he just flared it and went off. But all I could hear then was, my teammates, my platoon, everybody just kind of quietly moaning. And I just say to the guys, "Don't anybody move." All right? And then he goes, "Mr. Maguire, we can," And then all of a sudden I realized I can't move my legs. So typical back then, our ambulance was a 9-passenger van, and the only thing we had on the LZ was one bodyboard. So we had to have ambulances come in. So I got rigger taped to the bodyboard, with your head down and just so that your spine's not moving. But every time they moved you, it was like with the pelvis was like cracking your knuckles. You could hear, And then the helicopter goes back in its land. So the colonel from AP Hill comes, and typical back then, we never told him we were doing air ops, which he did not think was a good idea. But he directed the helicopter pilot to take us to Mary Washington Hospital, which is close up there, not the closest trauma hospital. And so there were 5 of us loaded into the helicopter, and I'm a lieutenant. These guys lieutenants, and I said to the pilot in command, meanwhile I'm strapped to the bodyboard. I said, "Take us home." I said, "Take us to Portsmouth." I said, "We're going to be in the hospital for a long time." I said, "I don't have my wife in a motel." I said, just going to take a little bit more, but take us to Portsmouth Naval Hospital. So we flew there, and we got taken in and taken off, and they cut your uniform off and do all sorts of stuff. But as we're waiting for X-rays, we were all in this little waiting room together. The other guys in wheelchairs, and there were two of us with broken backs, and one guy, Kevin Blake. Kevin wound up breaking both of his legs, but when he came down, he then hit, but his face went into his knees, but we still didn't know what was what. So we had one corpsman from the hospital helping us out, and Kevin says, "Man, my nose is so stuffy." He says, "Hey, Doc, do you have a tissue? Can I have a tissue?" So the corpsman gets him a tissue, and Kevin blows his nose, but he broke all of his sinuses in his face, and his whole face came away from the skull, and we're all laughing like and the corpsman just running out. It was like a Jim Carrey movie there. His face is out here. We got broken bones and broken backs. We're all laughing. Always look for the bright side of life, right? Yeah.
So what, everyone eventually was able to heal up? No permanent injuries?
No. So a couple of those guys left, but it was a different time back then. I'm sorry to say that I wound up being admitted into an officer room with some retired Navy captain, but the troops wound up being on a ward, and there were probably 20 patients on the ward, to include some sailor who had been in a motorcycle accident, and he's on a rotisserie.
Oof.
But it's pretty much a death watch, right? So George and McCraven and Kathy, the two of them were the very best of friends. And as you know, Bill and I are best of friends. And they come to visit me, and now Kathy's, of course, been with me the whole time, and Georgianne. I said, "Hey, do me a favor. I can't get out of bed. Would you go down and check on the guys and see how they're doing?" So they went down, and Kevin Blake is in traction with 2 hair dryers on his casts, and Kathy said, "Kevin, what are you doing?" "The doctor said I could get out of here as soon as my casts dry." But neither of them had been washed.
Huh.
So we'd been in the field for 8 to 10 days. They had camouflage on them, your hair. So, these are 2 sailors, mother's sons, that had been in the hospital for a couple of days, and they've still got their matted hair. So Kathy and George and McCraven, shampooed the guys, washed their camouflage off them, and just do what you need to do for a fellow teammate. And I'm glad to say, when I've been in the hospital since then, unfortunately, and Navy medicine is really superlative now. But it was once again after Vietnam, where the entire military was suffering. But I deployed. That was in Halloween of '82, and I deployed to Europe in March of '83, 5 months later, and jumped into Machrihanish, Scotland, and then also conducted a major exercise, a flintlock exercise, with my swim partner, Chuck Williams, and we from a U-boat, German U-209, so we had to lock in and lock out through the German torpedo tube, which was an excellent adventure. It's not for everybody, but when we left the submarine, we were in the water for 13 hours in the Baltic. So this is in late March or early April of '83. The surface temperature was 39 degrees, but obviously we're down about 10 feet. And I was just really glad that I had an Olympian towing me. But we were able to do everything that we were taught to do, and the 2 American swim pairs successfully completed the mission, and the Germans, the comp swimmers, were very, very good swimmers. Neither of their swim pair were able to do it. One swim pair wound up not finding the harbor and wound up in the hospital with hypothermia, and the other swim pair bailed. It was really kind of a defining thing for the SEAL community to be able to just say, we did that. But the Germans couldn't speak English, and I couldn't speak German. To be able to do lockout from a German torpedo tube, something got lost in translation a couple of times.
And you were diving draggers?
Yeah.
Man, and so that's like 8, so the wetsuits back then were junk.
Yeah.
So I grew up surfing in Maine, and I had saved.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, I know. I had saved all my money and bought one of these modern wetsuits at the time. It was an O'Neill Source was what it was called, and it had an embedded hood or a hood that was part of the rest of it. It had a dry suit zipper. Even though it was a wetsuit, it had a dry suit zipper just to keep as much water in there as you can. And I showed up to SEAL Team 1 with this wetsuit, which was like the most modern technology. And we were doing swimmer lockouts, and I remember I was in heaven with this wetsuit, because the wetsuits back in the early 80s, which you were wearing, just junk.
Yeah. Well, and even when we went to Buzz initially, you didn't get a wetsuit, you know.
Did you guys get no wetsuits during Buzz?
You did eventually after, as you know, Jocko will tell you folks, one of the big defining things there in SEAL training is the cold. And, you know, if you show up to Southern California and you see palm trees, don't be deceived. That water is cold. Yeah. And, you know, it was probably several weeks into training before and of course it was just pick something off the shelf, whether it fits or not.
Well, we got wetsuits, but again, I knew from surfing in Maine, and I was kind of on the forefront of wetsuit technology. And then I show up at Bud's, and they're issuing these wetsuits, which they don't fit you. It was an old school beaver tail with a zipper up the front. I mean, they barely helped. They provided some bit of warmth, but barely.
What's the swimmer lockout?
So you're in a submarine, and then underwater, you get out of the submarine and you go. And it's a very, I don't know what it was like on the U-boat, but for the American subs, they have an escape chamber, which is a little ball. It's a little sphere that you're sitting in. And it's probably, 6-8 foot diameter inside that ball? Smaller?
On the ballistic missile submarines it is, but on the attack boats, it's probably about 4 feet across.
It's tiny. So you're in there, and so you get in there from inside the sub, and then that thing fills up with water. And as it fills up with water, the pressure equalizes with what's outside, and you end up with just a little bit of air, a couple inches. And then it equalizes, and then you can the door opens up, and you swim out of the submarine.
Gotcha.
So I deployed on 12 submarines. So, but back then, once you get no good deed goes unpunished. You know that. But so that's how I wound up doing the German U-boat, and it was different. Now, the U-boats up in the Baltic, they're electric, so it's shallow up there as well. Our submarines are deep draft, but they're silent, just like trying to listen to a battery. And so it was a completely different experience in that German 209 have got 8 torpedo tubes up in the bow. And what they did is in port, they took a torpedo out of the port side and the starboard side. So there's no torpedo. Now, keep in mind, folks, that this is only 21 inches wide and I guess about maybe 21 feet in length. So we had to link up with the German U-boat in the middle of the Baltic. So now this was, planned exercise. So we fly out of Machrihanish, Scotland in a Air Force penetrating aircraft, low level, over Europe and then over the Baltic. By low level, I'm talking about 100 feet or so. And we get ready to go. You've got your parachute on. You've got your limpets. You've got your weapons. And the door opens. You're still at 100 feet. And they tell you to get ready. You stand up. And then the aircraft comes up. Just think like a bell curve. Mm-hmm. It gets to about 900 feet or so. And everybody just jumps out. So the last man's out. The aircraft dives back down. Right? So, you wind up in the water, ditch the parachute, you link up, we all get together, and then I start taking one of my weights and banging it against the oxygen bottle so that the submarine can through sonar pick us up. So we're in the water for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and all of a sudden, as out of nowhere, periscope up, it just scares the daylights out of you. So this is the best part about it then, right? So now we're in the middle of the Baltic. The submarine is there. I've got to go to the side of the submarine and tap on it in a certain signal to let them know that it's us. Who else is it going to be? Who else is out there besides us, right? So when they do that, No, the torpedo tubes have already been flooded. They open the shutter doors, and this is not without great risk. So the first swimmer went in feet first, and that was be my swim partner. Then I would go in.
And that was Chuck Williams?
Chuck Williams.
Who's a beast
Yep.
in the water for sure. He's at Team 2 and I was at Team 2. Just a stud.
Taught him everything he knows. So, and then I would go in next to Chuck, and we're right next to each other. We can kiss each other. Now, keep in mind, we've probably had 300 hours together underwater so far. Now, then the second swim pair comes in, feet first, and that he puts his fins on top of my thighs. And then the last guy comes in, and once he comes in, once he's clear of the shutter doors, he squeezes his buddy, who taps me on my thighs. I've got the weight, and then I tap the submarine so that they could close the shutter doors. So, all right, we're in. Now, the torpedo tube is designed to let absolutely no light escape. So even if you had a flashlight, you can't see anything inside there. Now, keep in mind, it's 21 inches. We're next to each other. And
Did you have to take your Draeger off to get in there?
No.
Okay.
So, no, because the thing is, now it comes to the life or death situation. So the reason why we figured we could do this is because an oxygen bubble is smaller than the nitrogen bubble because of what's going to happen next. So now we've got to lock into the submarine and come into the torpedo room. Now, the torpedo room and the submarine is pressurized to sea level, but we're at 14 meters. Right? Mm-hmm. So you depressurize, then you dewater. So I got a tap signal. We're all in, and then he said, whatever it was, get ready to go. So get ready to go means we all had to breathe our airbags, down to as thin as paper. Now our folks out there, our bags are about the size of a football. Mm-hmm. That's it. But it had to be, really sincerely, paper. And once you had it down, then my partner would squeeze me, and then the guys would kick me, right? And then it was and then I would squeeze. Are you ready to go? Are you ready to go? And then I would tap them. We're ready to go, right? And he goes, here we go. And then they would pressurize the torpedo tube that would take us from 14 meters to the surface in 1 second. So with the gas expansion, so it was equivalent. I mean, necessarily, I can't kid you. It was equivalent to having a small quarter-pound, half-pound block of TNT go off in the torpedo tube. It picked the four of us up, and just the pressurization just rattles you. Right, and you can hear the other guys. So, but it was done. You okay? You okay? You okay? So then they have to dewater, and you come out. So Chuck Williams comes out, and then I come out. The other guys come out, and they look at me like, Mr. Maguire, you got to do something about this,
And that's just your.
That's it.
That's just getting into the boat. You haven't done anything yet.
Oh no!
This is showing up.
Oh no! So now we got a 3-day transit to the target on board this German U-boat, which is, if you've seen Das Boot, I mean,
all about it.
Everybody in the submarine is at a central casting. I mean, the captain is 35 years of age. He's got the white turtleneck. He's got the beard. He's got the jack boots, and there's sausages hanging back and forth. Now, it's a small crew. It's probably only about maybe 30, and round the clock, these guys are working. But we were supposed to be trying to sleep right by the torpedo room, which is also the mess deck. So we'd get about 2 hours sleep. They'd wake us up because they'd have to set up for a meal, and then go back to sleep. So we didn't actually sleep, for a couple of days. But then as we start getting into the target, they take mattresses and blankets and put them all on the deck. Now, we have our wetsuits and everything, which was a mistake, in the torpedo. You're putting on a wet wetsuits that in 30 degrees, but we can hear the ASW craft overhead. So as the submarine's coming in, you hear the ping, 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 and then the submarine would just sit on the bottom, and then you hear boom, 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 the propeller going by. Once the propeller went by, the submarine would come up and take us a little bit further. Now, the Germans are helping us get dressed, putting our stuff on, and because the mattresses are on the floor and the blankets are on the floor, so the sonar from the surface ships, they're not picking any of that up. And then one by one, they pick us up just slowly, load us in so I'm the last guy to go in. And it's just so as I'm going in, the captain comes and, to wish me well. And he could say a couple of things, Joe, target bears 130 at certain, good luck and good hunting. Then he gives me a plaque. I got to stick in my wetsuit, right? So we go through the reverse, and then we're at 14 meters, and then we have to go get pressurized. Or no, we're surfaced, and we have to get pressurized. So that wasn't as bad because you're getting pressurized as opposed to depressurized. You didn't have the gas expansion on that, but you had to worry about squeezes and some of the other things. And then you come to the surface. And, we're probably about, maybe 5 miles out, and we weren't supposed to be 5 miles out. What happened was that, he couldn't speak to me on that he viewed the threat from the ASW boats and the picket boats too great to bring the submarine in and get without getting compromised. And we're out there, and, now you're 5 miles off the coast, and you're in the water, and you're looking. And, you've got your little Ben's compass and you try to figure out, and, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where's the target? And I said to Chuck, that's got to be it, buddy. You see that one area that's totally black? That's a giveaway. That's got to be the target. Mm. So we started going towards that, and sure enough, there were picket boats there. So we had a planned dive that was supposed to start pretty much at the mouth of the harbor, and we had to start way before that. So we actually spent a little over 3 hours submerged in this harbor in Olpenitz. And as we're coming out, Chuck, we didn't need to talk anymore. I mean, we could squeeze and anything. And, we did what we needed to do. We put the packages on the ships, and he signals to me, I'm fried, which was, this guy's an Olympian. And I said, so, okay, let's go over to the side. So now we go to the side of the harbor, and he takes his mask off. He goes, I'm screwed. He said, I've got this pounding headache. I've got narrow vision. I can't see much of anything. What we did, we screwed up. We brought additional oxygen bottles on board the submarine, but we didn't bring in additional Sodazorb, the scrubber. So what Chuck had done, working so hard for that much time in the water, is that he overbreathed his rig. I mean, we're working hard. And then the scrubber that takes the nitrogen out of your rebreathing, although he had more oxygen in the bottle, was no longer working. So he was having a tremendous nitrogen buildup. And he said, I just can't go on any further. Now, we've only got about maybe a little quarter mile more to get out of the harbor, but we're not going to, now there's pickets up on the seawalls waiting for us. So we just kind of sit there and you figure, all right. So this is a Northern Europe harbor, and the seawall is probably 12 feet high, maybe 6 to 7 feet wide. And I figured the only way we're going to do this is we got to get over the seawall, get to the ocean side, and see what we take it from there. So Chuck's a tall guy, and I was able to get on Chuck's shoulders and jump up to the top. And then, he handed me, my dragger, his dragger, and then I was able to, pull him up. And the two of us just, lying there. Then we rolled over to the other side, and it just kind of dropped down with all of our toys and just laid there for about 10 minutes. To see, and they had flares going off and other things there. And now, the rendezvous, we had a fishing boat that was from Danish intelligence that was supposed to be at a certain place, and you're looking there, and they're not at that certain place, but there is one boat out there that is another couple of miles away. Oof. Right? So I go. Now, if we didn't make the rendezvous, then you had to go into the E&E net. And these are folks, they fought World War II. So you did that. I mean, I don't don't want to go into the E&E net. So I said, Chuck, it's not where it's supposed to be, but that's about right.
Close enough.
I said, that's got to be it. So let's go. So we take off surface swimming, on our back, and now he's kicking out with Olympic quality. And now my hip from my broken pelvis is kind of, I'm spent. So all I'm trying to do, because of my swimming, is getting to trim and not hold him up that much. So we get to this boat, and before we get to the boat, we have to go back on bag, and then we have to go underneath the fishing boat, and underneath the fishing boat there were chem lights that told us this is the right boat. Now here it gets fun again, right? So we go up to the fishing boat, and there's a ladder over the side, and the guys in the fishing boat who were Danish, we had to give them a certain bona fide. No, I've got a gun. Supposed if we're compromised, right? I figured there's two things. One, I don't care if it's Russians, I'm getting on that boat. And two, if they won't let us on, I'm shooting myself. That's it, So now here you're freezing, you're dehydrated, you've been in the water for 13 hours. They take you below deck, and it's a real fishing boat. So they got an artificial side of the boat that they take off and put against the skin of the ship. And they put the two of us leaning against the skin of the ship and give us a couple of these big beers and chocolate bars, and then put the back on there, and then put fish on top of it. No, I want a blanket and I want a gallon of water. So the two of us just had to hug each other all the way into Denmark. But, it's one of those things that, the recruiter doesn't tell you that stuff.
Sounds like a Navy Achievement Medal, at least, maybe?
No, they didn't give out medals back then, No, I got the brass fig leaf with bronze oak leaf palms. I think that's what it was.
Oh, that's brutal.
It was brutal, but this, Jocko, sincerely, it was. But just to be able to come back in and just go, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
We did it, man. And we did it the hard way, but we did it. Just the tremendous satisfaction you get from being a SEAL and being able to do a really hard mission. And, even in my fitness report, when that, and, Rick Willard wrote in there are very few people, if any, in the world that could do what these guys did, this exercise. So
yeah, that's a freaking rough one.
Oh, yeah.
I was on an ARG platoon. I did a recon. We dove into a harbor. We took pictures, and of whatever ship. It was up here at Camp Pendleton. We dove in. We got out of the water. We took pictures, and this was the old school, film. And we come back out, and I had gotten like perched in the perfect spot. And I was able to keep the shutter open for like minutes and just hold it perfectly. And so I took a bunch of pictures. We came back, and then the report I got back from my platoon commander was that the amphibious ready group commander said, I thought these guys went in there during the night, and the platoon commander said, they did go in there at night. This is good photography. But yeah, same kind of feeling. And I used to tell guys, when you're doing a water op, it's a real world op. Like there's all kinds of things that can kill you when you're out there, especially in 30-degree water and 40-degree water, and doing the in and out of the submarine. Yeah. No joke.
Yeah, I mean, the class ahead of me in Buds, we lost a young trainee doing surf passage with those big heavy rigs that we had through the plunging Coronado surf. He hit his head on the back of his regulator and knocked him out, but then they picked up the swim pair and tore the buddy line, and they lost him and finally got him sometime later. But I mean, it's for real. And the ocean could kill you, or the weather. It used to be the patrol leader's card that we had years ago. The first thing you'd start off was listing enemy, and the first thing we listed was weather.
So what'd you do after that deployment?
That's when I went to graduate school.
Okay.
So I went to the Naval Postgraduate School and studied scientific and technical intelligence. And I thought, all right, I got 18 months of surfing and screwing off. So my brother went to the University of Michigan, got his MBA. For 24 months, he took 40 credits. I went to the Naval Postgraduate School, and in 18 months took 96 credits, of which I had 3 electives, three credit electives, that's it. And a good portion of it was in the physics lab. And we're designing the shape of scientific intelligence. I kind of missed that, So, but it was a great education. And, I really, I enjoyed living in Central California and do that. I mean, we wound up doing triathlons and some other good stuff. But being able to complete that curriculum then, and then leaving there and getting all of the intelligence accesses that, you don't realize that those things exist until you get into the secret clubhouse. And then I was in the secret clubhouse, and I left there and went to Naval Special Warfare Group 2 in Virginia Beach, which is the oversight group commander for the SEAL teams on the East Coast, as the intelligence officer there. So it was a very, very good time to be the intel officer, because we were involved in 1986 El Dorado Canyon, the Libyan campaign. We had the Central American Wars, and also we did a significant amount of work in other areas there. But that really is when I first got involved deeply involved in intelligence. But to me, it just went hand in glove with being a SEAL, that you know what to ask for. That we didn't really know what the menu was, because we didn't know. And then
we just kept ordering burgers and fries.
Well, once you realize exactly what the intelligence community has gotten as capability, you can really refine. And the other thing as well, more importantly, as you know this, Jocko, it doesn't matter what you got on your collar. It's who you know in relationships. It's all about relationships. And when you had, folks who were the N2 of Second Fleet, and I went to graduate school with this individual, that really paid off great dividends, for the community. But, when it came to what we were doing in, Benghazi and all of these other places, we had built target folders for all of that stuff. And when it comes to Final Jeopardy, if it's a geographic question, I probably had a target folder on it.
And then didn't you end up going back to SDV? Or when did SDV form up? SDV Team 2?
SDV Team 2 formed up in about 1979 or 80, because we had a we had an SDV detachment in UDT 21. And that was siphoning off so much of our money and so much of our time, because a great idea, but we did not have the technology. And the guys spent a great deal of their time switching out the bow hulls because they kept crashing into piers and rocks and some other things. But cold and miserable. But the other thing as well, it was a really good time for me to go to SDV, because that's when we first started to modify the nuclear-powered submarines to carry us, as opposed to just having us go on there and putting towels on the deck and telling us not to make a mess. And we just had the dry deck shelter. We had the Mobility Improvement Project, which was a national mission to the first dry deck shelter, this is a garage, folks, that we put on a nuclear submarine. And we put our submersible boats in there, and we come out of the submarine and into that. It's like a garage, and then we go off on a mission, probably about 10 to 12 hours, and in a cold, wet submarine. And it really, I'm glad that I had that other background in that I was able to bring an awful lot to comfort the commanding officers of the submarine, that, what, you guys are going to ruin my career. It's going to be okay, Captain. We probably will, but it's going to be okay. But and Bill McCraven was there just before me as a platoon commander, and Evan Thompson. But also at that point, I didn't want to be that ambitious, Jocko. I mean that sincerely, but I just figured, if I ever do wind up being in charge of the community, I'd like to know something about everything in the community, and I really strive to at least have one tour and have a good sense of what it's all about.
At what point did you realize you were just going to do as long as you could do?
When my wife told me that. So, I mean this sincerely. So, I guess I was at the 10-year point. We did Grenada. Vietnam is over, and we're going to do anything ever again. And it was kind of unlikely. I mean, we're doing exercises, and everybody was bored. And I was not, I don't know if my old former senior guys listened to this, but we're not a whole lot of folks who were inspirational leaders ahead of me. Let me put it to you that way. And I just figured, okay, I'm going to go to law school. So I was applying to law school, and I'm dead serious. I'm going to go be a lawyer. And I finally get this counseling session from Kathy. She goes, "You're not going to be a lawyer." She said, "You are a SEAL. You are a good SEAL. Every friend we have are SEALs. I'm not going to give that up for you just to become another crummy lawyer." Sorry, counselors, but so I just said, just like any good husband, okay. So I just decided to, jump back in with both feet, and then you take it as it comes. At the 20-year point, we've all got to decide whether or not we're going to retire. But as you know, the service is like they put that carrot out in front of you. Okay, I'll take that promotion, and then I'll get out. Then they put another carrot out. Next thing you know, you're old and ugly, and you got 36 years in the Navy.
So was that your EXO tour at SDV team?
It was, and a lot of time at sea. On board the submarines and doing operations. So yeah, that was good. That really was a really, really good tour. Really become. It was the first deployment that we ever made with the dry deck shelter, and when you're doing the firsts, there's nothing. I mean, you had to write everything. You had to write the tactic, these procedures, and the procedures working from a submarine are life and death procedures. Yeah. And you really had to know and be extremely cautious, and there really was the unknowns, and you just you go back and forth, and in the community. We are a risk-taking community, but you never take a risk you don't have to. So we really had to put, pros and cons of most experienced folks, and then sometimes, honestly, pretty much we knew it. It was going to be okay, but you still were rolling the dice sometimes. Mm-hmm. But the credit really belongs to those guys, the pilot and navigator and the SDVs, to be able to go from a nuclear submarine submerged in the middle of the ocean and go, do a target and come back 10 hours plus later and find that submarine is a remarkable feat. It really is. So, really the credit goes to those young operators, hard men. I still think that, that is probably among our hardest missions that we've got. And as you know, there is not a wetsuit thick enough to keep you warm.
And so then what? Did you go? Is that when you went to detailer after you got done with that tour? You became the detailer?
I became the Maritime Special Purpose Force Commander. So I deployed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I deployed for a year with the Marine detachment and with our detachment, and got over to the Mediterranean. Got involved with another submarine operation there for the evacuation of the embassy in Beirut.
Oh, okay.
This was the second time that I was in Beirut. I evacuated when I was an ensign on board the ship in 1976, because they were at war, and the ship pulled in the middle of the night, and all of Beirut was on fire, and the Palestinian Liberation Authority gave us permission, be able to have one boat come in and a junior officer to take the Americans out, to include the United States ambassador, and I'm in my whites with my little shoulder boards, and the PLO were pulling these guys out from line, not letting them get on board our boat, and I'm on the walkie-talkie calling back to the ship and talking to the XO. I said, "Sir, they're pulling people out. Is there anything we could do?" "Don't do a thing, Joe. Just don't leave that boat, and don't do anything until the Americans are on board and the ambassador's on board." But it really, to me, this was in July of 1976 with the 200th anniversary of our nation, and I'm thinking, here we are, the United States of America. And we got these folks dictating to the American ambassador, who represent the President of the United States and us, whether or not he can get on board an LCU. And that was a pretty defining moment for me. So then we did it again at that time frame. And I had the opportunity to go back to Beirut when I was the SOCOM commander with the JSOC commander, and had lunch with the Lebanese commandos. And it was a great lunch. We're sitting there, and I'm talking to the Lebanese commander who's hosting the lunch. I said, "Well, I'll tell you, General, this is my fourth trip to Beirut, and the other 3 times I've been here, I never spent more than an hour out of the 3 trips. We're in and out, and so we spent probably a better part of a day there in Beirut." But it was just interesting when I went into 1976 to see it as a collapsed city on fire, and then go back in 2019, I guess, and just see it looks like Hong Kong, except that they're bankrupt. But no, it's funny how from ensign to political appointee, but it all, it's always been a troubled spot.
What was the when you went there and pulled guys out or did the embassy evacuation from a submarine? What was that operation like?
We can't talk about that right now.
Got it.
Sincerely.
Yeah. So then, what was after that? So you did that deployment with the special force commander.
Yep, and then from there up to DC. So it was my first Washington tour, and as the assignment and placement officer for the community, and it was an awful lot of fun. That you're the one person in all community making all assignments from ensign to captains, and everybody hates you. Hard to believe, isn't it? But that was a really good one. I did the best I could to even the playing field and distribute. But the other thing is I had an opportunity to work and serve on selection boards. So you're a junior officer and you're supporting the senior the captains and the admirals as they make their selections. And you see the selection board process, and then you see who gets selected and who doesn't get selected. And you could just sit back there after a while and go, don't sweat the load, man. Just do your job. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. Because everybody's record, when they're up for flag, just about every one of those captains, their records are like manicured lawns, but not everybody's going to get it. And it's just it doesn't matter. If you're going to get it, you're going to get it. But if not, just relax and just do your job. And really took an awful lot of pressure off there. But that was a time that then we wound up with First Gulf War. Mm-hmm. So wound up leaving there and going down to DevGru as the deputy commander.
And then how many years did you spend down there?
I spent 2 years down there, and then left to take over commanding officer of SEAL Team 2.
Now, during this time, would you say that this is a time where you had the first Gulf War happen? Are SEALs starting to kind of become popular yet? I mean, I came in 1991, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, there was the Navy SEALs movie, which I'm sure Echo Charles likes. The Navy SEALs movie, I think, came out in 1991.
Yeah, it makes sense. Chuck Farr's movie.
yeah. But there was still not a lot of popularity. It wasn't a big deal yet. No.
So you don't want to have a history lesson for everybody out there, but because of the failure of the Iranian hostage rescue mission in April of 1980, and then compounded by what happened in Grenada, that the civilian side of the House made the decision that, especially because of the failure of the Iranian hostage rescue mission, that if we as a nation want to have an organization that be able to conduct no-fail missions, that we need to be serious about this. And there has to be one command that's organized, trained, and equipped to be able to do that. That started shaping the community. But we were still in the Navy, the Army was still in the Army, and through the Department of Defense Appropriation Act of 1987, Senators Nunn and Cohen tacked on the end of that appropriations bill the establishment of United States Special Operations Command and bringing in the Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces, Rangers, and as 160th, and Air Force Commandos under United States Special Operations Command. So then we had our own line of money for unique. But be honest with you, at that time, my friend Tom Coulter, who mentioned that, once the SEALs came into United States Special Operations Command, Tommy goes, well, congratulations, we're now in the bottom of 2 food chains. Pretty much we were, but we still, in spite of that, the resources didn't flow. And the active duty military did not necessarily want to have this. And if they did, they wanted to have it 3-star command, it's close to Washington. And it was our civilians that said, no, we know the military. It's got to be a 4-star. And, actually probably had an awful lot to do with the powerful Florida delegation more than anything else that we wound up in MacDill. But it took quite a while, and we would just be coming. And but the leaders of the community made very, very good decisions with the limited resources we had, and we had other opportunities to do away with certain types of things that we as a community did. And one of them was, unconventional warfare, that the Green Berets were going to do away with that. And luckily they decided not to. So when 9/11 happened and they were able to send the 5th Special Forces in, with John Mulholland as the group commander and the other young folks that wound up being the horse soldiers. But that war was the defining thing for the community. Unfortunately, we paid a heavy toll to be where we are today. But when the opportunity presented itself for both Afghanistan and Iraq, special operations mentality and capability was at a premium, and we were ready at that time to do that. And luckily, the active duty military had come around, as well as the senior civilians, and completely changed the resourcing for the United States Special Operations Command, and I have to say really gave us all the tools necessary and bent over backwards to make us as successful as we possibly could be. And we were carrying all the water. Mm-hmm. And so she said, back then nobody knew who we were. Now everybody knows who we are, but that also has got to do with the tax that we paid and the brave people that you mentioned a little bit earlier who, And if I could talk about that just a little bit with Mark Lee and Ryan. So, Jocko mentioned about me welcoming the men home from combat, but Jocko was already deployed to Iraq, and I would also see all of the guys off before they got on the plane and left. So Jocko's got a bunch of guys from his task unit. I didn't want to bother them. They're talking to their wives, and then it's time to kind of go out to the plane. And so we're standing around, went out of the plane. I said, look, guys, one last thing. I said, the genie's here. Rub the lamp, make your wish, And guys, some folks are reluctant to talk to a guy with 2 stars in his collar. And now Mark Lee was a new guy. This was his first deployment. And Mark Lee comes up, he says, hey, Admiral, I want to talk to you. All right, what is it there, Petty Officer Lee? He says, we're over there, we're fighting the war, and we're these Humvees, and these Humvees are not air-conditioned. We need air-conditioned Humvees. Well, Mark, I tell you what, you're in a war, and you just can't stick an air conditioner in there because if a bomb goes off, you might wind up eating it. So let me do this. Let me go to United States Special Operations Command. I'll talk to General Brown and see what we can do. And I went back to my office. I called General Doug Brown, who was our SOCOM commander. He says, look, got it. I got it. And that was his big, I got it. But he said, but we have to do this smart. And we wound up with air-conditioned Humvees in Iraq because Mark Lee asked for that. Now, and to me, as the Admiral, you work for the men. And if that's what they needed, that's what they got. But one of the most moving things in my life was when Mark came home to San Diego. So when you come home, you get flown into Dover, and then from Dover to San Diego. So there were a bunch of us that went down there to meet his body as it came off this commercial plane. And there were folks at San Diego Airport were very kind to us and let us come down. So now everybody had to remain on board the plane with the exception of our escort officers that escort Mark's body back. And I'm down there with the Master Chief and the body comes off. And, all of a sudden I realize it's dead silent in the airport. There's no planes moving. There's no cars moving. I was so focused on the coffin coming off. And then I look up in the terminal and everybody's pressed against the glass. Everywhere. And one of the airport, I said, what's going on? He said, we stopped everything. We stopped everything. And they made an announcement in the airport. The first SEAL who was killed in Iraq is coming home. Why don't we all go out there and welcome him home? And that was remarkable. And as far as Ryan Joe, you had to know Ryan, folks. Ryan was just indomitable, absolutely indomitable. So now here he lost his vision, and he's in a Bethesda Naval Hospital. So I just coincidentally, I was going to be there anyhow because we had a Navy Cross ceremony for two of our SEALs that were with Michael Murphy in Operation Red Wings, who were killed in that. They were posthumously receiving the Navy Cross. So we had a big ceremony planned at the Navy Memorial. So a few of us in town. We go to visit Ryan, who is at the Bethesda Naval Hospital. Now, we go there, and Kathy's with me, and he's asleep, and there's a woman there. Turns out to be Ryan's mother, right? So go up, and he wakes up. And he goes, hey, guys. So, of course, all the knuckleheads go in, and we start talking. Now, he's blind, but he's himself. And so,
even maybe a little more.
Yeah. And I don't know who did this. Now, I'm talking to, Mrs. Job, and, we're taking care of your son, and we still didn't know what his disposition was going to be. I mean, he just came out of combat. He'd only been in the hospital for a couple of days. And so somebody says to him, hey, Ryan, we're going to have a major ceremony at the Navy Memorial for the couple of guys they're receiving the Navy Cross. You want to come? Yeah, I'm in. Now, he's blind, so he can't see this. His mother just points to me with the old "you" outside. So she drags me into the lobby, and she has got her fingers in my chest, right? My son just lost his vision. Yes, Mrs. Job, I got it. Yes, Mrs. Job, we got it. Yes, Mrs. Job, we got it. So I said, Mrs. Job, look, I'm not going to, but if our teammate wants to go, I mean, it's up to you. I'm not going to get involved, but I guarantee you we will have a car for him, we will have a place for him, and we will have a big, bad SEAL who will escort him. Do you remember who you sent home to be his escort?
I sent 3 guys home. I'm not sure which one.
Well, one was the American sniper,
yeah.
Right? So, So I don't know what's going to happen. But, I mean, this is a very moving thing because we got the Gold Star families there and everybody was there. It was a sunset ceremony in Washington, D.C., and the Secretary of the Navy, the Chief of Naval Operations, all of Washington's senators, and I come out, and the lights are on me, and it's a semicircle amphitheater. And as I'm talking, welcoming everybody, I start over the right. Where is he? 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 And as I'm talking and I'm scanning the crowd, and all the way over on the left at an end seat, there's one individual who has his head turned to the side. And I realize it's Ryan so he can hear me. Right? And I'm kind of looking, and I figured, right? And then who stands up behind him? Right? I got him.
Chris.
I got him. Chris Kyle. I got him. You go, okay, he's in good shape there. So we went through that, and I got to tell you, the ceremony was moving, but we had a reception after that, and then we went down to the memorial for reception, and dumb frogmen that we are, we got he's blind, put him in a chair. So it was almost like Animal House when they come into Delta House. You've got the nerds that they just kind of stick to the side, just sit, So we keep trying to get Ryan this, and meanwhile, now keep in mind he's 2 weeks since he's lost his vision. And there are hundreds of people there, and he's just walking around the crowd. And of course, I'm on him now. And everybody's, I'm on him. And he bumps into this woman, and he goes, "Oh, excuse me, hi, I'm Ryan. Who are you?" "Hi, Ryan. I'm Barbara Boxer." He didn't have a clue that it was a senator, and he just started chatting her up. I figured, my God, So it was a wonderful reception, and I stayed till the last Gold Star parent left, and I'm fried. I got to be honest with you, because I had to do Navy business there today, and then and you're on it, and it was emotional as could be, as you can imagine. That emotion is just raining. So I forget if it was Danny Dietz's family or Axelson's family that left at the last, and I just figured, okay. I turned to Kathy. I said, "All right, baby, let's get back to the hotel." She goes, "Oh no." She says, "All your men are at the Irish pub. You got to go have at least a beer with the boys." My name is Maguire. It didn't take. So I go into this bar, and it is packed, packed. So of course the guys are being nice to kind of make a way for me and Kathy. And up against the bar, with the beer in his hand and his elbow on the bar, is Ryan Job drinking a beer, just being one of the boys. But one of my favorite stories about Ryan, after he got medically retired, he became very good friends with our 4-star commander, General Doug Brown. And so he calls up General Brown, and he says, "Hey, sir, I'm going to climb Mount McKinley. I'd like you to come with me." Well, Ryan, I'm in my 60s right now. I don't know if I could do that. General Brown told me this. He goes, "General Brown, I'm blind. You've got no excuse." So it's an indomitable, just wonderful, just an inspiration.
Yeah.
One inspiration, both with Chris as well, an inspirational person.
Yeah, I remember, you said he was medically retired, but there was a time where he was not sure if he was going to medically retire.
Right.
And, he said to me, he said, "Well, can I stay in?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, but I know someone that does know." And I came by to see you, and I said, "Hey, there's a chance that Ryan wants to just stay in." Mm-hmm. And you looked at me and said, "Then he stays in."
Yeah. Now, my thought was, when you look in your mirror and you see yourself, you see a SEAL. And my thought was, I don't have any one of us telling our teammate he no longer can do it. Mm-hmm. Our teammate has to come to that realization on his own. And I just thought sooner or later, it's just hard to make that break, especially, you're coming from combat and going through all this stuff. Sooner or later, you realize, because I learned that from Tommy Norris. Tommy was one of our Medal of Honor recipients from Vietnam, and Tommy was severely wounded. But because he was a Medal of Honor recipient, that, "Tommy, you could stay." And Tom made the decision, I could stay, but I don't think I'm a full-up round anymore. And I just, so he made that decision as well. So I learned that years ago, and I just thought, let my teammate decide when it's time for them to go.
Yeah, that was awesome for him to have that option, and for him to know that as long as he wanted to be in the teams, he would be in the teams. That was freaking awesome. Where were we? We were at what? You were about to take over SEAL Team 2?
Well, I took over SEAL Team 2 and left there, and I had the misfortune of getting deep selected for captain. But so I'm deployed on another submarine with the SEAL team down in the Caribbean. So we've been at sea now, probably submerged for a week. And, as you know, Jocko, when you finally finish, you come to the surface, they put the antenna up, and you download the traffic. So we've gone admin now. We're up in the sail. The submarine is running on the surface, and, you folks, you see pictures like that in recruiting things where the folks are up there. So I'm up in the sail with the commanding officer of the submarine, and the guys are in the just aft of the sail putting our boats together and some other stuff. And the sound-powered phone rings, which on the submarine, the captain picks up the phone, Captain, and he's listening, and he starts looking at me, and I figured, oh God, what did my guys do now? And he hangs up the phone, and he looks at me, he goes, we just got a message. You just got selected for captain. I said, that can't be. I'm not eligible for another 2 years. He goes, well, what's your year group? I told him, he goes, damn, Joe, so's mine. So with that, I wound up, not staying as long as I would have liked to, but I left there and then went to, got selected for Harvard as a national security fellow up there. And that was another remedial education program for me. The part that gets me about Harvard, really, it's got a good reputation, but who knew that spelling counts?
So, how long are you up there for?
13 months. So it was a one-year fellowship, but it was remarkable. So I had officer rank. I was a member of the faculty club. And it was just great to be able to have take my mother to the faculty club and just tell her, even C students can make it to the Harvard faculty clubs, Mama, So, but it was really great because it was small seminars focused, and what I was up there really to do is advanced research in national security. But the folks that I had up there at the Kennedy School is really the holding tank for government. They were either former secretaries, former ambassadors, and I became, because one, you're a SEAL, and I just and had the rank, that I was included in everything there. They're just really remarkable. Some of the seminars I was in, I had to put maybe once a week, because we had to take turns submitting a memorandum, and it would then go to the two professors who. One would be the former Deputy Secretary of State, and the other one was, an Undersecretary of Defense. And they'd go through this darn thing, and they'd go, Joe, you dope. You can't say that. They're going to leak that to the Washington Post. And honest to goodness, here's how you say it without, indicting. I mean, it's really good, practical stuff. But because I got included in everything, this is at a time when Ted Kennedy was still alive, and the senator from Massachusetts, and John was around, and they'd come to the Kennedy School all the time. But Senator Kennedy's sister was the ambassador to Ireland, and the Kennedy family invited Jerry Adams to come to Boston. Right? And then he gave a lecture in the evening at the Kennedy School, and then a small dinner. So these were all emeritus professors. Would you like to come, Joe? Boy, would I, And then we had dinner. There were only about 8 of us at dinner. And he was holding court. And I got to tell you, I was just sitting there watching and thinking, no wonder. I mean, this guy, these are all senior emeritus Harvard professors, and they were eating out of his hand. Mm-hmm. And I think this guy's good. This guy's real good. So then our 4-star at that point in time, General Downing, came up to visit. He came up on a regular basis to Harvard. And so what have you been up to? Well, I had dinner with Jerry Adams. Ooh, that didn't go good, Because it's just, Joe, he's one of the biggest terrorists in the world. I said, well, the thing about it is, boss, what an opportunity to learn about him. Mm. I mean, you just can't. I'm here to learn. And even if it's an unpleasant or you're here to learn. Mm-hmm. And I learned an awful lot just about maybe the couple of hours that I spent there listening to that guy, just how good these folks are. But tremendous education. And then from there, I went to become the deputy SOCPAC. So I had all of these beautiful suits and overcoats and things that I wore at Harvard.
And then you're in Hawaii.
And then I'm in, aloha attire. Don't throw anything away. You never know.
And then you're doing the deputy. What's the deputy position like out there in SOCPAC? What are you doing?
It was wonderful. So in the Pacific, SOCPAC was co-located in the same building as the Pacific Commander. So we actually were, although a separate subunified command, Admiral Prier, who was the Pacific Commander, actually made us a part of his staff. So we had the best of both worlds. That in the morning, I'd be up there because the general traveled a great deal, and I would be the one that represented, sit there, with the 4-star and his staff, getting all of the classified briefings up in the skiff, and then down to another conference room where a broader audience with the less classified things were discussed. But going through interesting things with sending 2 carrier battle groups into the Taiwan Strait, and just seeing that unfold. But we also had a situation where this was the first time I really became aware of beheadings. We had a group of Westerners, this is in August of 95, on vacation through the Hindu Kush. And this was up in the line of control in Srinagar. And they were captured and held ransom by Muslims up there. And one of the captors, a Norwegian, ran away, and they caught him, and they cut his head off. And they put his body on one part of the town and the head on the other part of the town with a ransom note, on either. And the Indian military then came to the ambassador, who was the senior-ranking ambassador in the United States State Department then, who went to the secretary, and we had to deploy a Delta Force assault team there with General Pete Schoonmaker, who was the JSOC commander. So we were doing not command and control for them because the Pacific Command was doing that, but there was nobody in the Pacific Command that understood that. So I was standing next to the 4-star's desk. This was before Admiral Prier showed up. This was Admiral Mackey, and he had to draft a personal form message to the Secretary of Defense and to the Chairman every day, and I drafted those messages for him, and he changed a little bit, but it was that time I had in Harvard. I mean, this is Shirley. I never would have been able to do that before. As I said, spelling counted, and but he would change a couple of things, and they were deployed there for 40 some odd days, and we never got the hostages back. So when just they were there, it is September, so it is the anniversary of the end of World War II. And the president is there, the Secretary of Defense, everybody's there. Just this is Bill Clinton, and this is 95. So and now I've been locked up for 30, 40 days. I'm as white as a sheet, but because I wasn't going anywhere, I'd go home for 4 hours, sleep and shower and come back. I'm in my, aloha. I'm in my flip-flops. I'm in my board shorts, and I'm in my T-shirt. Now, the Pacific commander is down there with the president and everybody having breakfast, but his aide is up there, and I've got to run all of these things by him. And I'm explaining, I said, okay, what they're asking for is they want to go forward and be with the Indians are going to do a takedown, and they want to have our guys to be with them during the takeout. And I'm trying to explain it to him. And he's an attack pilot, and he finally keep in mind he's in chokers with all of his medals and the big gold aigulets that the aide wear, and he finally says to me, "I can't get this. You got to come with me." All right, so I'm following him again, flip flop. I got this bag handcuffed to my hand, right? And we jump in the car, and as I'm in the car, I'm trying. I don't get it. You're just gonna have to explain it yourself. Now, I completely forgot what was going on, but as I get down there, you got all the Secret Service agents, you got metal detectors, right? And you've got you got an aircraft carrier on one side of the pier and 2 cruisers on the other, right? And they're all at dress ship, and everybody's standing along, manning the rail. So Bud jumps out of the car, and he just runs through the metal detector, and they've seen him for several days, so they know he's good. And I come after him, and the Secret Service guy says, "I'm with him, man. I'm with him. He's with me." So we're walking down the pier, and we're standing there, and again, everybody's at dress ship. I mean, folks, you got to understand just how impressive this is. You've got several hundred guys in an aircraft carrier, the cruiser, you got the flags up, and then the armored vehicle comes down initially, and these guys jump out. It's all the Secret Service guys. And then down comes the beast. So the president and the first lady are in that. And then you hear from the aircraft carrier a bugle, everybody for attention, right? So everybody's at attention. And Bud Langston, he's saluting. I'm in my flip-flops and stuff. And the president gets out of the car. And I figured it'd be inappropriate to salute, so I'm just waving. And the president comes up and he shakes my hand. Hey, yes, sir, thanks, Mr. President. So up they go. He goes on board the ship. In the meanwhile, he went on, and then the rest of them had to walk down. So down comes the Secretary of the Navy, the Secretary of Defense, the 4-star commander. So Bud goes, "Okay, you got to brief the admiral." So we pull him off to the side, and I try to give him the disposition of what they're asking for. And what is your recommendation, Captain? I said, "Sir, I think you need to support the guys and approve the decision." "Well, that's about the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life." "Do I get a second guess?" He says, "No." He said, "That thing will go south, and who are they going to blame? No, Joe, you go back and tell the general, permission denied on that thing." And I think in retrospect, he's probably right. But, what do you think? I guess wrong. But it was an interesting job. And the last thing that we did before I left is we had to evacuate Cambodia. So there was a coup in Cambodia, and the embassy needed to be evacuated. So we deployed to Cambodia, and that was the last thing I did. Then I finally left and then took over the center. And so I was sleeping in my office, working around the clock, just an operational command, and now I take over the training command. And I've probably been there for a month and a half. And one of your previous guests, Admiral Bill McCraven, is driving along the Strand. It's about 7:30 at night. He's going one way, and I'm on the other side. He takes his Jeep, and he makes a U-turn. He says, "Joe, what are you doing?" "Coming home from work." "Get in the car." So get in the car. "Joe, it's 7:30 at night. You're on show duty. You're driving everybody crazy." You got to take a deeper breath and maybe just kind of pace yourself a little bit more. But Joe, they're not keeping up this pace here. But thanks for the feedback, buddy. I appreciate that. But you come from an operational command when you're doing something like that, and it takes you a while to decompress and become a human being again.
Right. Yeah. And how was Buds from the perspective? I mean, the last time you were there was as a student.
Yeah.
And now you're back there as the senior guy. People talk about the changes at Buds.
Yeah.
And there's other people that go, "Hey, look, it doesn't matter. There's little changes here and there, but the outcome is the same."
Yeah.
What'd you say?
And I mean, it changed dramatically in that, as I said, nobody really cared about the numbers back then. That if nobody graduated, nobody graduated. But at that time, we actually, and appropriately so, people were looking for return on the investment. And, we still had a really terrible attrition rate. But we also had some other things that we did that, when I finished Hell Week, I had to cut my boots up so my feet could fit in the boot. And I had cellulitis, and just that's it. I mean, so, and that was inappropriate that, we had to do that. But, and then, the young troops back then, every day that they'd come in and they'd change their socks out for them and give them dry socks and just some other things. But, I mean, the mission of the command is to to graduate qualified individuals to go to the SEAL team, not break them and bust them. So, whatever it's going to take to get them there. But it was really still pretty much the same, but it needed a little bit of tightening up, just a little bit. So, we had some structures there, and what I just thought we needed to do, I'm not too into this, as you know, Jocko, but I'd say, I kind of have to drive a little bit of fear into these guys, just, a little bit too relaxed. So I went to, the guys at the development group, and I said, "Can you send me a couple of warrants or maybe some senior guys that would like to come on out here and help shape the community for the next couple of years?" Mm-hmm. So we had some of the DevGru senior enlisted guys come out. And so one of the guys showed up, a warrant officer, who's a dear friend of mine. And we were one of the final days of Hell Week, and the kids are in the demo pit. And the kids were in the demo pit, was setting off explosives around them, and these kids are still singing. Now, this is probably Thursday or so, I kind of forget. And they've already lost about 100 people in the class, so these kids aren't going to quit, but they are beat up. And the instructors are doing their thing. And, he just arrived at the command. And I said, "Hey, Danny, we're down there. You want to come with me down to the demo pit and watch?" He said, "Sure, I'd like to come along." So, I'm just doing there. I've got the Master Chief, and again, I'm not interfering. I'm watching. And I look over at this guy who is a DevGru warrant officer, and he's got tears in his eyes. I didn't say anything. On the way back, I said, "Danny, how'd you feel about that?" "I forgot." He says, "I forgot what it was like." He said, "I forgot." He said, "For a little while I was there," and he said, So it's the same. And Master Chief Defelsky, who was a streetwise Force Master Chief, and he really mud-sucked our instructors. So, we all go through training, and as we look back on it in the rearview mirror, we were faster, smarter, stronger, better. And so he's the Master Chief in charge of all of the instructors at Bud's training. And they're constantly complaining to the Master Chief about the quality of the individuals. They're not making this, and if they don't do this, they shouldn't be able to contribute. So Tefelsky, really a smart guy. On a Friday afternoon, we have one big classroom. It probably seats about 100. So he's got all the instructors in there. He made everybody come. It was mandatory. And he's got the chalkboard up there. He said, "All right, first phase, what is the minimum standard that you need to have for the 4-mile run? And it went down to swim, the yo course, then and the second phase, third phase.
And everyone wants everything to be. You got to do better, got to be faster, got to be stronger.
So he really mudsucked them. So he said, "Let me understand this now." He said, "Because I'm going to go talk to the captain, and we're going to change things here." He said, but I want to make sure that everybody agrees. If you can't do this in first phase, if you can't do that in second phase, if you can't do that in third phase, you should never be a SEAL. Is that correct?" "That's right, Master Chief. You're right." "Well, gentlemen, it just happens I have every one of your training records here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give each and every one of you your training record. Then I'm going to walk out of the room. Once you finish looking at it and you see what you did, just put it back in the box, and I'll see you Monday." Because it was true. It's humbling to go back and look at your own record and see what the instructors said about you. Install it. We still have the same. We've got every single record from day one on. And so, as a matter of fact, when I was there, I tried to burn down the room there that had my record in it.
Hey, when did you leave Buds?
What's that?
When were you done at Buds as the commander?
Well, I was there for 39 months, which is a really good. And honestly, it was just a fantastic tour. Not one that I wanted to do, because I was going to go someplace else in Virginia Beach, and we had trouble with our attrition rate and getting folks through. So I got changed from going out to Virginia Beach to the center. But it turned out to be probably the most rewarding tour I ever had. To have people like Marcus Luttrell go through training. And, I remembered Marcus because not many students break their femur in training. And so, it's not a good time when, the senior instructors and the doctor and the Master Chief come to talk to you about, all right, he broke his what? He broke his femur. How? Stress fracture. Ooh. Well, BS, right? So, we went through, and I'm going through this stuff, right? So what happened was, right? And they were covering for him, and he did break his femur. So, Marcus, if you're listening, so the instructors, and if any of you think that you could beat me, of course, Marcus raises his hand. This is the obstacle course. So it's all technique. And now you're dealing with a SEAL that's been doing this obstacle course for years. And now Marcus was good, but you've got a guy who, these guys are like pixies going over this darn thing. So you climb to the top of the cargo net. Was that about 30 feet, Jocko?
Yeah, it's like 30 feet.
Right? And you throw yourself over, but you do it in a technique that then you drop down a little bit and you can grab onto the rope and work your way down. So Marcus got there, and he knows this the technique, and he threw himself over. The only problem was he didn't grab it. And he went down to 30 feet and hit. Boom. And he broke his femur. So, to his credit, though, went out, got rolled back, and came back. But, that's a good old boy there. But they lied to me, as any good teammate should do, because they didn't want the instructor in trouble. And I bought it, unfortunately. And it wasn't until later on that actually Marcus told me the story that I broke my leg. He's the one that came clean,
Oh, that's epic. Yeah, this must be like the glimpse that you get at human psychology when you're, because I never worked at Buds, I went through it, but I never saw it from the other side.
Yeah.
The glimpse at human psychology of what people are capable of and what breaks them, and that's got to be that's got to leave a mark.
Well, absolutely, and you really learn a lot. Now you and I go through it, but you go through it is different. You're experiencing it. But when you have an opportunity to watch class after class after class, I just remember, my first Hell Week class, and this is Monday night of Hell Week. So they start off at Sunday. They've been at it for about 22 hours, 23 hours. They're having their evening meal, and the class, outside, and there's a couple of students staying behind in the chow hall, putting the chairs back into the table. Now, I thought that this was somewhat odd. So I'm sitting there with the instructors having dinner. I said, so what are these guys up to? Yeah, they're just waiting for the rest of the class to leave so they can quit. And it was true. So you could just see, but what it was is nobody ever quit in the evolution. Everybody quit before the evolution in anticipation of what was going to happen. And just now, you can argue whether or not it is the most demanding physical course in the military. If it's not, it's close. All right, so I won't argue with anybody. But I will tell you this: it is a far more psychological program than it is a physical program, because it's designed to keep you off foot, and the standards are raised and raised and raised, or you're told that this is going to be the evolution today, and then they change it. But specifically, to that, can you adjust to that? Can you adjust to that? So it is most of the people who quit. No, I had a 3.5-hour briefing today down there with our teammates, an update on what the community's up to, and Beef Dreschler gave me the pitch, and Beef just took over the center on Friday, and they bring in close to 900 students a year to get 180 out. 187 is his demand signal, and 900. So it's still, in spite of everything that we've done in preparation, as you said, when you went through, nobody knew. When I went through, it was a Trivial Pursuit question, I mean, but now these guys are prepared. They know what it's doing, and I said to them today, what is it? They self-select. They raise their hand, and they know. We lose a couple from academics, we lose some from pool comp, but the vast majority of it, this is not for me. And when I used to get the young men in the, now I was not an instructor, and I would get them all after the instructors talked about Hell Week. I'd go in there and I would just talk to these guys, and Marcus talks about that in his book. I just said, look, it's as simple as this, guys. Every one of you guys can make it through. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. I mean, you've already been here now for several weeks. If you're not going to make it, you're the one who decides you're not going to make it. It's not going to be us at all. And, it's as simple as this, guys. I mean this sincerely. The secret to life is just don't quit. Just don't quit. I said, and don't doubt yourself. These guys, they doubt themselves, but it's, why am I here? And I used to say that when they first came, Buds is not the SEAL team. Buds is Buds. It is where you need to spend 26 weeks to get where you want to go. But don't even think for a second that this is SEAL team. But I will tell you this, you put up with this for 26 weeks and you get to that SEAL team, it will make everything that you did here worthwhile. Trust me.
I was down there a little while ago, and I was walking around, and there was, just with one of my friends that works there, and there's 100 helmets by the bell. 100 helmets by the bell. And he says, you know what? I said, that's a lot of quitters. This, whatever it was. 2 weeks in, I said, that's a lot of quitters. And he says, you know what? Every one of those guys is a stud.
Yeah.
And he's basically referencing compared to us when we went through.
Yeah.
When I went through, I thought if you did a pull-up workout where you did 30 or 40 pull-ups, that was a pretty good workout. And you don't realize when you get to Buds, you're going to do 300 or 400 or 500. You just didn't know. We didn't know back then. But every one of these kids now, they're studs, physical studs, but they still quit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But the difference, though, physically, I would say, is, when I went through, Eric Olson, Bill McCraven was 2 classes behind me. The way Eric put it, and I think this is right, back then, it depends on your parents were, if you're going to make it through Buds, because it was endurance. Everybody had to run forever, and everybody had to swim forever back then. So it was a different type of body type. Now, not everybody looks like you, Jocko, but as you know, when I took over the center and these young men lined up next to the pool in just their swimsuits, it was a completely different physique on those young men. But we were preparing them for different things, as opposed to no long-range patrols, no 10 to 12 days in the field, no 13-hour swims. You're going to go to the Hindu Kush, and you're going to go to Balad, and you're going to go to Ramadi, and you're going to go to Fallujah, and you got to wear heavy equipment, and you got to carry a lot of stuff. So it changed, and I don't know what's going to happen now that we're we're changing, and Admiral Howard, rightfully so, is going back into the strategic competition, great power competition, and putting the community back into a maritime focus.
Mm-hmm. Get those wetsuits ready, boys. Absolutely. Did you? It's interesting. People always ask who's going to make it through. Who's going to make it through? And I would never put a bet on anybody one way or the other of who's going to make it through or not. I don't care where they came from, what their background was. I remember one of my commanding officers, Captain O'Connell. He told this story to me, and I never forgot it. There was some officer that was put in a package to go to Buds. And he said, I've never backed anyone before. I've never backed anyone. I've never said this guy's going to make it. And this guy had this pristine record. He was an athlete he was captain of that. He was all these things. He spoke 2 languages, maybe even 3 languages, just a complete stud. And finally, O'Connell, signs off his package and says, yeah, take this guy to Buds. And the freaking guy quit on him. And he said, I will never, ever back anybody again. And to me, that was a captain that had been in the teams forever and denied all these packages. And even with that level of discretion, you can't tell who's going to make it and who's not going to make it.
Oh, there's Jim O'Connell?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you really can't. And because you really don't know what's going on behind the eyes. So we've got members who are on the national teams, whether it's the national swimming team, these are very accomplished people, Division I athletes. But the other thing as well, you get some kid that comes out of high school, goes to boot camp, did intramural sports, and he's standing tall on graduation day.
That's me. 100%. And I had an Olympic alternate gymnast in my Buds class, quit, and I had the NCAA water polo team captain in my class, quit.
Yeah.
And like I was that guy that I was an average, if not slightly below average athlete in high school, and hey, stuck it out. They weren't going to make me quit. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
Where were you when September 11th happened?
I was assigned United States Special Operations Command, and excuse me, I was assigned United States Special Operations Command, and we talked a little bit earlier, Jocko, about the community and what the fleet commander said, what my father said. And here I am. I got promoted to 1-star at the end of August of 2001.
Wow. And
a little more than 3 weeks later, I'm sitting in my office, United States Special Operations Command, and one of the troops comes, and he leans against the door jamb. And I said, well, what's up? He said, a plane just hit the Twin Tower. So... being a New Yorker,
yep.
And I'm thinking, okay, this is foggy day, and you got a small aircraft there, and he's not leaving, and just figured, okay, I got a TV. I said, do you want to turn the TV on? He said, that's what I'd like. Yes, sir. So I'm behind the desk. I got the TV over there, and I look up. I go, it is a perfectly beautiful day in New York, and I mean, shortly after that, with moments, I see the other plane flying south on the Hudson River. You don't fly south on the Hudson River. The plane's going into Newark. You got to fly north or you got to go around. And I'm thinking, what an idiot. That guy's flying that plane around just to get a better look at that. How stupid. And then, boom, he goes into the second tower. And immediately. And I get up and I ran into the SOCOM commander's office, General Holland. And I said, General, we're under attack. We're at war. He said, what are you talking about, Joe? I said, turn the TV on. I said, we're at war. And so obviously that was a long day to kind of sort everything out. And I finally got home about maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning of the 12th. And so I'm just having a little bit of orange juice and maybe an English muffin or something, try to get a couple hours before I got to go back into work, and the phone rings. And I pick up the phone. I figured it was the headquarters, and there's this shrill voice on the other side, just kind of screaming. And all of a sudden I realize it's my brother. And my brother was at 220 Church Street, which is a block down from the Twin Towers. And he was at a meeting and saw the first building. He didn't see the plane hit, but he saw the building on fire. He said, well, maybe we should adjourn. I mean, again, nobody could believe that it was happening. And, he said, so by the time they adjourned, he went out to the street. He actually, viewed, the people jumping for their lives out of the Twin Towers, which is pretty traumatic. But then he had to walk home across the Brooklyn Bridge all the way to his home, which probably wound up being, well, I don't know, maybe about 12 to 15 miles, because there was no transportation. Everything shut down. So by the time he got home, that's when he calls me, and it kind of broke down to, Joseph, get them. I know what you do. It's up to you guys. Get them. I think I'm just trying to calm him down, because, okay, Bob, I'll do my best, And so, one, I never thought I'd be an admiral, never. And I certainly never thought I'd be an admiral when our nation was at war. And to have that opportunity to, actually be a flag or general officer serving in the United States military when the nation's engaged in decisive combat operations was, quite an honor, but also, as you know, Jocko, quite a challenge. And, it took us a while, but we finally did it. And after it, on May 2nd of 2011, I called my brother. And it took a while, Bob, but we got him. And I'll tell you what, when that happened, now I retired in July of 2010. And I'm up early in the morning, not as early as you, but probably about 5:30. And I'm in the kitchen, and got a little bit of cup of coffee as I'm putting my running shoes on, and I thought I heard something on the radio about Bin Laden. I mean, I just wasn't paying attention. That doesn't. So I just waited till 6 o'clock to hear the news, and folks who stayed up late the night before, they knew, and I still had no idea. And I heard what had happened, and I was just thinking, I just sat down there. I couldn't go for a run. I just had tears in my eyes, in that I know full well, and so do you, the heavy road, the toll that was paid to get to Abbottabad, all of the blood and all the lives and all the brave men and women, who got there. And so by the time I got to work, everybody's jubilant. And they're saying, I had quiet pride. It was pride because it was our teammates, and then the 160th and the CIA. But it was really emotional for me, just thinking about whether it be Matt Axelson, Danny Dietz, or all of the other folks that Bourgeois, all the men that we lost there in Afghanistan. And so, yeah, that was people be getting my haircut. And how long you been in the Navy? 36 years. Well, how'd you stay so long? Well, we've been at war for the last 10 years, buddy. And it was on our shoulders. But when you know full well this war was personal to you and me and to many of us. And the other thing as well, it's just hard to explain to people how you could become friends through death. That you meet parents and you meet family members that you never knew, but you knew their son, and you buried their son, and you were on your knees giving a mother the flag that was on her son's coffin, and you get to know these people, and you stay close to them, for a long, long period of time. So, again, I wound up there at SOCOM, and it was an interesting time for me. I was a baby 1-star, and it was a small place. We only had five flag and general officers then: the 4-star, the 3-star, 2 Green Beret, 2 stars, and me. I was the baby. But it was a great place to learn. And one of the officers there, Eldon Bardwell, was a Special Forces general officer. And up to that point, Eldon was the most highly decorated soldier in the United States Army. And school was certainly in session for me, working with Eldon. So that when I left there and then went to Naval Special Warfare to take over the community, I left there as the deputy commander under Admiral Eric Olson, and came back, close to 4 years later. And I just remember, remember Captain Barbara Ford, Just so after that, she goes, "Oh my God, you turned into an admiral." We're at war. You had to. Yeah. So.
My commanding officer at SEAL Team 7, I was on deployment. I was in Iraq, having just the best deployment ever, just having a great time doing a bunch of operations. And he says to me, the last thing I do as commanding officer of SEAL Team 7 is I'm going to make sure that you become the admiral's aide. He pulled it off. So that's how you ended up with me.
Well, I tell you what, it was wonderful. Between you and and Beef Treschler. But folks out there, you've got a good idea what Jocko looks like, I'm sure. But Beef used to be the center for Navy, and he's also a pretty strong guy.
Well, my name is Jocko. His name is Beef.
I know.
Kind of says it all.
But when Beef was replacing Jocko, we had the families over for dinner, and we're there at dinner, and my daughter is sitting there, and she's probably about 10 at that point in time. And she looks at the two of these guys, and she honestly asks, "Beef and Jocko, are you guys my daddy's flag lieutenants, or you guys my daddy's bodyguards?" And the two of them go, "Yes." I said, "You guys screwed up. You should have told my daughter, your daddy doesn't need a bodyguard." But the truth of the matter is, I sure did. And if I had one, these are the two guys to do it. But no, what I always asked, I never interviewed anybody to be the flag lieutenant out there, folks. What I would do is go to the senior officers. I go, send me a champion. Send me somebody who's just come out of combat, somebody who's got a future ahead of them, somebody who's willing to work really hard. And because I don't use the flag lieutenant and the aide to carry my bag. I carried my own bag. What I needed was to bring a lieutenant into the meeting to hear what was being briefed or what needed to be resourced, and be able to turn to that lieutenant and say, do the men need this? Is this what they want? Or what do they want that we haven't? And, because that individual, whether it was Jocko or Beef, came right out of the battlefield and had that credibility. It was only a year, their turn in the barrel, and it's a very demanding job. I had been a flag lieutenant myself, I understand that. But it was just, Jocko was a tremendous resource for not only me but the community. And then as well, when Jocko then went back into his SEAL team and became a task unit commander, he almost becomes like an apostle to the rest of the community to explain why we do what we do, because now he knew. He'd been to the inner sanctum. But it was an absolute honor. And, the way I considered to be, you and me, our relationship is just like in any relationship in the teams, we were swim buddies. Necessarily. We had each other's six, we had each other's back, but I leaned very, very heavily on you, and you never let me down. You always came through, Jocko.
Yeah, and then obviously when we were going through that deployment in Ramadi, it was just awesome. Like I started us off, the support that you gave me and thereby the rest of my task unit it was awesome.
Well, we were a community at war. It was on our shoulders. And I know that you were taking it very hard because, we were taking some heavies. But when you're at war, you have to realize you're at war. And, there's going to be casualties. But at the end of the day, you were highly successful in your mission, and you came out of that with extreme high regard. But, to me, several years later, as you know, we're christening a Navy land attack cruiser up in Bath, Maine. And one of the great honors that I've ever had was normally when you christen a ship, everybody's there, senators, congressmen, and the Secretary of the Navy is the guest speaker, the main speaker. And because of my relationship with Mikey Mansour and with you in Task Unit Bruiser, that the Secretary of the Navy asked me to be the guest speaker there. But I think I also mentioned to the speaker, it was Task Unit Bruiser. If you got any questions on why we call it that, look at Lieutenant Commander Welling.
Well, that's awesome. I know we probably could talk for another few hours, and I know that you got to go, which pretty much to me means at some point you got to come back and we can tell the rest of your story, because this was not the end of your career of service, and you ended up doing much more. And you'll have to come back, and next time you're in Coronado, we'll come up and finish the rest of the story.
Yeah, well, I tell you, Jocko, I'd love to come back, and we've had a great visit here in Coronado with the center change of command, visiting our teammates, spending 3.5, 4 hours getting briefs from on the community this morning. It's just inspirational, but I believe in a life of service, and as far as a leader is concerned, you've got to be a leader who sacrifices, And when I was asked to come back into government, it wasn't on my scope at all. But I came back in and wound up being the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, which I was very comfortable in that. It was my strike zone. But then when the president asked me to become the director of national intelligence, not necessarily my strike zone in there, but I will tell you, to start off and have a rubber boat in your head, and then years later, you're sitting there as the president's intelligence officer at the National Security Council. And even, I had an interesting time there, as I'm sure you know, that I had a testimony there for 3.5 hours in the House Select Committee on Intelligence. It had to do with the whistleblower complaint. But, for 3.5 hours, you're on camera, and you've got some, very, very bright and talented people asking you some demanding questions. But it was the very first time that I was really, really happy that I went to high-risk SEER and understood interrogation techniques. So
I'll tell you what, even as that, I knew that was happening, and I sat down to watch it. And you can, they look like sharks in the water. You can see them. They're thinking they're going to, I go, you don't know who you got. Number one, he's from Brooklyn, number one. Number two, he's in the teams, Harvard, the whole 9 yards. I said, this isn't going to go as well as they think it's going to go.
No, I didn't. I'll tell you what. No, I mean, it was because I will tell you this though, Jocko. There, not only was I representing the entire United States intelligence community, but having spent 36 years in our community, I really feel like here I am. I know I'm on national TV, and it's going to be a pretty important hearing, which probably would lead to what it did. And I just forget, I'm still representing the United States Navy and our special operations community. So I just figured all I'm going to do is tell the truth and play it straight. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that. And I did. And I think at the end of it, I felt like I did my job, and I was able to leave with my head held high.
Yeah, well, that was the other thing I knew. I knew you were from Brooklyn. I knew you were from the teams. I knew that you went to Harvard and the whole 9 yards, but I also knew that if they were looking for something that you had done that was immoral, illegal, or unethical, I knew that they could not find it and they would not find it because I know you, and I know that you do the right thing. And so that's why I watched that with great joy.
Yeah, well, just before I got the job, it was the White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, did the vetting. And Mick told me, he said, I've talked to everybody, especially everybody in the special operations community, and I couldn't find one person to say something negative about you. Now, I hadn't been offered the job yet. I said, Mick, give me a day. I'll give you a list of people. I didn't necessarily want that job, but I got it, and it went okay. But Jocko, it's been a great honor. It's so good to be with you, and it's always good to be with a teammate. But I'm so proud of you for not only what you did when you were in uniform, but what you have accomplished as far as just not only personally, but the way you've been offered to give back with your leadership and what you're sharing with the world, whether your books, your podcast. And there's so many people that I know that listen to this podcast, read your books, and really learn a great deal about leadership. And folks, I tell you, when people ask me, do I know him? I do. Is he the real deal? He's the real deal. And I'm honored more than I could possibly tell you to be with you today. And folks, I do plan on taking Jocko back up on this offer and come back and visit with you sometime in the future. So thank you, my friend.
Be outstanding. And the things I say today are the things I learned from people like you, from our great community. And thanks for coming to talk to us. More important, thank you for everything that you've done for America, for the Navy, for the teams, and of course, for me. It was an honor to serve with you, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Likewise, Jocko. Thank you.
And with that, Admiral Joe Maguire has left the building, and Echo, you didn't even get a chance to sort of ask a question. We were moving pretty quick, and He had another event to attend. So you have to save your whatever. Did you have any questions?
Not at the moment. I actually asked the one. What's the lockout? thing, whatever.
Yep.
There's a lot of little stuff, man, that I'm like, hey, wait, what is that? Not even necessarily because I don't know what it is and I need clarification. A lot of times it's like, I don't know what that is, but it sounds kind of interesting. Maybe not to you guys because that's part of your guys' everyday thing at the time. But for me, it's like, man, even that lockout thing, bro, that's interesting.
And I think it's one of those things where imagine if you were hearing a jiu-jitsu story about like you're caught in an arm lock and and then they had the triangle too and all I would need to tell you, since you know jiu-jitsu, if I was like, hey, I was caught in the arm lock and the triangle both at the same time, I started having the walls close in, you would know what that meant.
Yeah.
Someone that doesn't understand jiu-jitsu is just like, oh, like kind of, it doesn't really mean that much to them. In fact, It almost means nothing to them. Mm-hmm. So when the Admiral was talking about that whole lockout thing in the German U-boat, that is a crazy story. That is a crazy story. The cold, the claustrophobia, the changes in pressures. Did that come across? Could you recognize how freaking crazy that was?
Yeah, so it did come across, but you know what else was clear to me? That what you're explaining right now, that was the case. And I did not want to interrupt at all. I mean, aside from, at least so I can grasp an understanding of what the lockout procedure is, so I know even more. But yeah, so the claustrophobia thing, anytime you guys talk about submarines, I do remind myself, because my friend Jeremy would tell me about like these submarines, and there's those little diver vehicle things or whatever. So
SEAL delivery vehicles.
Yeah, so he'd tell me about that, and it's like, bro, it's not like cool like on the movies you guys are cruising in the office with the thing, bro. The thing is like super cramped and bro, I don't like that claustrophobia stuff.
I know
like,
you don't.
We'll put it this way, I'm attuned to certain cramped
21-inch tube, by the way.
See?
21-inch tube.
Yeah. Yeah, so you guys are talking about that, and I'm like, boom, and then you guys are talking about like these procedures, like kind of like, oh, we all know what those procedures are. I'm like, wait a second, we have claustrophobia, you got freaking the submarine, you're underwater, you're doing all this stuff, bro. I kind of want to hear more. It's kind of nuts, you know. But that wasn't the point that he was making at the time. So it's like, I don't want to derail the momentum of the conversation.
Yeah, well, at some point maybe we'll go into a little more detail about what those types of operations are like. I was lucky because when I came in to the teams, we still did that in the normal teams. And once the war kicked off, we didn't really do submarine lockouts in the normal teams very often, if at all. Not to mention, we used to just dive like it was going out of style. And once the war started, we're fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. We're not doing a bunch of combat swimmer dives training dives to prepare to go to Iraq. Like there's some rivers, but we're not doing harbor infiltration on draggers. But I was lucky enough to be able to do that a bunch, and just get some of that. It is a freaking hard job, man. It's a hard job.
You mentioned something kind of in passing, like kind of quick, where you have the operation, but all the steps to go through the operation are just completely painful. So like, you talk about the temperature of the water. If you haven't swam or been in 40, 30 something degree weather, I have ice bath scenario, whatever. But nonetheless, I know what that feels like on that prow. What if that was just your world,
That's your world.
That's what I'm saying.
That's your world. And that was what was interesting. He was talking about getting into the submarine. Yeah. After jumping out of an airplane and then landing in the middle of the ocean, then you lock into the submarine, one person goes in fin first. It's crazy. Yeah. And by the way, then you're just on the submarine. You still haven't even done the mission yet. You're not even close.
Darkness.
You're not even close. You haven't even started the mission yet.
Yeah. And so it's like that kind of stuff where it's like, man, you could elaborate on the feeling of like a 10-second period for a long time and really paint that picture. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
That'd be nuts.
Yeah, we'll have to get to it at some point. Yeah. Nonetheless, as you like to say, we might not be in those scenarios, but we want to be ready for various scenarios. We want to improve our capabilities for diving, swimming, shooting, living, fighting, whatever we're doing. Whatever we're doing.
It's true.
How do we improve our capabilities a little bit here and there? What do you think, Echo Charles? Where should we start?
Interestingly, you talk about diving and swimming. I bought this is a few months ago. So I didn't know that masks for like, diving and stuff had like that many levels to them.
Oh, there's levels.
Bro, there's like some good mass. Anyway, but I got a good one, and I was like, all right. Makes you kind of want to go swimming more too, by the way. So it's like when you get these things, it kind of pushes you into the game a little bit more.
Right.
I'll give you an example. All right. So what are we doing? We're working out. We're reading. We're listening.
True.
When I say working out, there's various kinds of workouts. Obviously, there's jiu-jitsu, there's weights, running, cardio, metcons, all this stuff. Nonetheless, you can take some damage on the way. Got some DOMs right now, by the way. Squats yesterday, side note, all day. And conditioning. Nonetheless, you might need supplementation. So, good news is Jocko has supplementation. So, first we'll start with the cognitive and physical stuff. Discipline, go. Kind of groundbreaking in a way.
Very.
Yes. So let's start with the cans. So energy drink. Boom. It's the new energy drink already. Established already.
Yep.
The new one. The new wave. The new paradigm.
Isn't it funny? There was all these other companies making, quote, energy drinks, and none of them saw this big, just giant gap in the market. They were just saying, oh, we'll put more sugar and more caffeine.
Yeah.
And more people will buy it.
Yeah.
And they didn't see this big hole. A bunch of people actually wanted to drink things that were healthy and actually gave them real energy, not just a freaking sugar rush multiplied times a caffeine jitter and call that energy. So anyways, they didn't see it. Cool, we did. Here we are.
Yeah, and I get it because, like, as a company or whatever, like you kind of, let's just say some groups kind of play off of weaknesses of our brains or whatever and go for that superficial, whether it be palatable, just that easy win, tactical. And they can play off of that, and you can get some good numbers with that. That's the thing. So they play on like people's weakness in a way.
Play on the short-term gratification of human beings.
Yes. So if you call that a weakness, we'll play on their weakness, right? But the good thing about this is you don't play on people's weakness. You actually play on their strengths, to be honest with you.
You help their long-term strategic goals.
Oh, yeah. But the good thing, or one of the many good things about this is that it's both short-term and long-term.
It's amazing.
Discipline, go the energy. And actually the one that is the most short-term payoff, as far as taste goes, is the mango. Factually speaking.
Even though you're drinking a whoop-ass watermelon right now? You ran out?
It was in short supply. So
I will say this one thing that's cool about these drinks: the different flavors actually taste different. It's not like some other quote energy drinks that there's a bunch of flavors, but they're all just basically taste like sugar water. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I had any other energy drinks, but yeah, I can remember that was kind of the case one way or another. Nonetheless, okay, so Discipline Go. This is, if you haven't gathered already, it's a healthy energy drink that you will literally be better off after you drink it than before you drink it. And it fulfills all your energy drink needs.
Very legit.
Very legit. There's also like the mix, Discipline Go, the mix. Mix it up with water, whatever on the go, and capsules. So keep this in mind for cognitive and physical supplementation in general.
Also, get your immune system in check. Vitamin D3. We got some Cold War. We got the joint maintenance and repair. Kind of both in one. Get some joint warfare. Get some krill oil. And of course, glory be to the protein gods. We have milk.
Yep. It's true. Right. If you're trying to, and here's the thing, I don't know if we talk about this where, if you're trying to like build muscle, which I think is a very worthy goal, by the way.
We are in support of building muscle.
You want more muscle? You want less muscle, right? Not dichotomy. What do you call them? The simple decision. What do you call that kind of decision?
Binary decision.
Binary decision, right? Yeah. You want more or you want less. All right. So if you want more, you need extra protein to add to the muscle that you're trying to build. So do you know the minimum amount of protein you need?
1 gram per pound of lean body mass. Oh, Jocko coming off the top ropes with some bro science from 1996.
From what I understand, that's on the high end for sure.
Okay, well.
But keep in mind.
Let's round it up, right?
All right. Well, let's say the average. Let's say someone weighs 180 pounds.
Okay.
So you need 180 grams of protein. You know how much protein that's a lot.
It's a lot of protein.
There's a lot of steaks in one day, and steaks are pretty high in protein. See what I'm saying? Yeah. So the milk This serves that purpose very well. Here's a good thing about milk, like we already know, it actually tastes good, like an actual dessert. So now you can have 2 desserts in one day. You'll be better off than you were. And if you're trying to build muscle, boom, facilitates.
You can have breakfast, dessert, lunch, dessert, dinner, dessert.
Snack dessert.
Get yourself some milk.
Oh, yeah.
But you can get all this stuff, jockofuel.com. If you subscribe, if you want to get it shipped to your house for free, subscribe at jockofuel.com. We'll send you all the stuff that you order for free. You can also get the drinks at Wawa on the East Coast. Vitamin Shop, you can get all these products as well. And a lot of people hitting me up like, hey, can you get this drink, in Milwaukee and in Tucson and in LA? We're working across the country. We're literally having meetings all the time to get this stuff propagated throughout the nation. Because we want everyone to be stronger, faster, smarter, and better.
Yeah.
So we'll let you know as we get out there.
Yeah, it is about the long term and being prepared, 100%. Also, Origin USA. So you go to originusa.com. This is where you can get your American-made stuff, apparel. Got some boots on there, boots and jeans. They'd say that's the flagship kind of scenario.
Yes.
There's some jiu-jitsu stuff on there. Pete was on there. He's demonstrating, or how should I say, displaying, showing, whatever, some new pants.
The new work pants?
Yeah.
I got them. They're freaking legit. Bro, I am so stoked.
Bro, there's some, you were talking about wetsuits earlier today. Yeah. And to me, this is kind of the image I got. It's like you were talking about those old wetsuits and your new high-speed wetsuit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like...
source,
yeah. So these pants that Pete was showing in the little video...
That's the new work pant.
Yeah. So it's like, if you get regular work pants, cool. And it's cool. It's better than no work pants.
It's actually not. It's like having one of those old wetsuits.
Yeah. But it's better than no wetsuit is what I'm saying.
Marginally.
Okay. And that's my point.
And there's no reason to. It's not like there's going to be, there's no reason to. Yeah. Back in the day, it was, hey, this is the cheapest government contractor that can build us wetsuits that suck.
Oh, yeah.
And then other manufacturers are out there making badass wetsuits, but we didn't get them yet. So there's no reason for that.
Oh yeah. So now you got the same deal. Boom. You want the new, the updated, effective work pants. This is the kind of stuff Origin does. Mm-hmm. Straight up. That's the game.
We're gonna make everything, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Everything. Also make gis. And hey, if you want to put your gi to the test, come to the Origin Maine Jiu-Jitsu camp retreat. Intensive
immersion.
Yeah, immersion camp. That too.
And here's the thing about that too, because sometimes people be like, "Oh, is that thing just super intense?" Or like, chill. What is
it's
it like?
Freaking fun.
What's up? Like jiu-jitsu 3 times, 2 times, whatever a day. They're like, man, like I like jiu-jitsu, but I don't know if I'm down for these. This Hell Week Navy SEAL.
30% of the people that are there will have less experience in jiu-jitsu than you, even if you only have 2 weeks of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and
there'll be some freaking awesome badass black belts and brown belts and purple belts for sure, but there'll be a lot of people that are just getting their start in jiu-jitsu. So come and check that out if you want to. Origin. Check originusa.com.
Yeah, and it's not like it's this big competition training all the time. Bro, and I'm not going to name any names, and actually it's cool. You can go there and not spar with people. Go there, just learn the technique, talk with some people, go swim in the lake, straight up. Like, it's a jiu-jitsu vacation. That's what it is, straight up.
We should have called it the jiu-jitsu vacation.
Yeah. And the good news
you could even call it depending on your intent going there, you could call it a vacation with some level of jiu-jitsu, depending on what you're curious about.
Whatever level jiu-jitsu you want. You can go level 10 even.
You can go level 10?
Yeah. You can train 3 times a day.
You can train. Rounds. You could train probably 14 hours a day if you want to in jiu-jitsu. Or you could train 0. It's up to you.
Watch, yeah.
And it's just kind of it's a vacation with some level of jiu-jitsu involved if you want.
And lobster
and steak. So check it out, originusa.com. Also, we have a store, by the way.
Yes.
What's that store called, Echo?
It's called Jocko Store. So anyway, jockostore.com is where you can get your shirts and hats and hoodies, light and heavy. Rash guards on there, some shorts on there. I'm going to update some shorts. Get some new shorts on there too.
Are they the ones that I've been asking for?
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know. As soon as those come out, I need 5 pairs.
Okay.
Just kind of FYI.
You got it.
Just kind of FYI.
100%.
So-
There's a lot of cool stuff on there. Discipline equals freedom. Good. Anything. When you want to represent while you're on the path, this is where
Are
you
the
get
new
your
shorts
stuff.
going to be the same material as the old shorts?
You tell me.
I say yes because their material is good to go.
Yes, sir. I agree. So some shorts on there as well. If you want something, get something. That's a good way to represent. Also, we have the shirt locker. It's a new shirt. It's a subscription situation. New shirt every single month. Different designs, not as good
job.
designs.
Good job. You're hired.
Hey, look,
for sure.
hey,
that was a great description.
We collectively have been struggling to demonstrate or to explain the quality of these new designs.
Just say we got some cool designs.
They got some. We do.
You could have said that.
Yeah. Well,
you said there.
But that doesn't.
Something.
That doesn't capture it though. See, because every time people are like, "Hey, that design is cool. Can I have it?" And I'll be like, "Well, that was 2 months ago."
Okay.
See what I'm saying? So I got to convey it accurately so people know going in. It's an element of trust for sure. But
Shirts
they're
are
cool
cool.
designs.
Check it out. The Shirt Locker.
Yep. It's on
If you-
Jocko's store.
Hey, also subscribe to this podcast. Don't forget we have some other podcasts. We got Jocko Unraveling with Daryl Cooper. We got the Grounded podcast, which we haven't done in a long time. We got the Warrior Kid podcast. And we also have the Jocko Underground podcast, JockoUnderground.com if you want to subscribe to that thing and get on board and help us build the underground where we're going to be laying in wait and things. If things go sideways, we'll be there.
Yep.
We stockpiling material.
Sure.
We got food. We got water. We got content.
Yep.
JockoUnderground.com if you want to check that out. $8.18 a month. Some people know what that $8.18 represents. Not many, though. Take a guess. And if you can't afford it, hey, look, we want you in the game. Even if you can't afford that $8.18 a month, we'll still just email assistance@JockoUnderground.com and we'll take care of that. Also, we have a YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel where a lot of the videos, some of the videos, I should say, some of the more premier videos I'm the assistant director on, and it's very obvious when they're awesome.
You know, it's funny. I released a video recently.
Mango Mayhem.
All day. So people are catching on to the whole assistant director thing.
Why are you saying it like that?
Because people, I think, might give you, then again, I guess it's not undue credit because the odd thing, I know you say this is kind of a joke, but like every once in a while you'll add like a little detail.
I add a critical detail.
That turns out to be kind of critical. Yeah. So in that video.
It hurts you so bad. It hurts you so bad that whatever I add is usually critical.
Okay, so here's the thing. You're right in a way. It doesn't hurt. Okay, we'll use the word hurt. It hurts me not because, Jocko did it, thought of it, and I didn't. It's more that
Jocko thought of it.
It's hard to
Bro,
explain.
that'd be like if I was writing a book about leadership and then you added it, you were like, hey, you need to discuss this thing right here. And I couldn't not do it because it made so much sense.
Yes,
and you know what? My ego would be affected by that.
That's okay. So
that's where you're at.
That's the part. Like maybe it is, but I don't feel overtly that it's my ego. It's more that like, oh shoot, I didn't even see that. Like, frick.
How can I be so stupid?
How can I be so stupid? Yeah.
How could I be so pathetic at my job?
No. How can I not be
better? Not a loser.
So you know, like you walked up, like in that video, you walked up right at the beginning when you walked up and you're doing this part.
Yep.
Like that. That was pretty good. I gotta give it. I'll hand it to you, Assistant Director Jocko over here.
So anyways, we got a YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that, and we also have an album that's called Psychological Warfare that will help you get through little moments of weakness. I'll kind of get in your head a little bit. Press play. Mm-hmm. Go to your MP3 platforms to get some of that. If you need a visual representation of the path, cool. We got that for you too. Well, Dakota Meyer does. Flipsidecanvas.com. Got all kinds of cool stuff to hang on your wall. I've written a bunch of books. The latest edition. Oh, I don't have it on my table. It's Final Spin. Okay. It's a book. I mean, it's hard to describe. It's a transcript. It's a novel. It's a poem. We don't even, the publisher doesn't know what to call it. They never seen anything like it. All they know is that it they are impressed. All they know is that they are emotionally moved by this piece of work. So if you want to get some of that, order it now. Final spin. Get that first dish. You're going to want the first dish of that. Because listen, hey, I'm going to write another leadership book. But guess what? That's another leadership book. So even though you get the first dish of a new leadership book, it still is the first of a dish of a series of leadership books. If you want to get in early on the novels, the first dish. Leadership Strategy and Tactics Field Manual, the Code, Evaluation of Protocol, Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual, Way of the Warrior Kid 1, 2, 3, and 4. Mikey and the Dragons, About Face by Hackworth. I wrote a little forward to that. What an honor that was. And then the OGs, Extreme Ownership and the Dichotomy of Leadership, that I wrote with my brother Leif Babin. We also have a leadership consultancy called Echelon Front where we solve problems through leadership. Go to echelonfront.com for details. Extreme Ownership Academy. Go to extremeownership.com if you want to go to the leadership gym. Leadership, you don't learn leadership in one day or by reading one book. You got to get in the gym. You got to be consistent. Go to extremeownership.com. Check out our online training platform. All kinds of activities going on there. We also have a live event. Next one is Phoenix, August 17th and 18th. We are not sold out yet. People are a little bit nervous, some people, I guess, about Miss Rona. But we are getting close. So that's Phoenix, August 17th and 18th. After that is Las Vegas, October 28th and 29th. Those have all sold out in the past. These will too. Get in on it early. Go to echelonfront.com. Check the events. And if you want to help service members, active and retired, you want to help their families, Gold Star families, check out Mark Lee's mom. You heard about Mark Lee today. What a freaking hero he was. And his mom has been carrying on his heroic attitude with her charity organization. If you want to donate or you want to get involved, go to americasmightywarriors.org. And if you, let's face it, if you want any more of my tedious testimonies, or you want to have, for some reason, you want to hear more of Echo's ridiculous reflections, you can find us on the interwebs, on Twitter, on Instagram, which Echo only refers to as the Gram, and Facebook. Echo's at Echo Charles, and I am at Jocko Willink. And thanks once again to Admiral Joe Maguire for coming on, for sharing his experiences, but more important, and I think you realize this, thank you to the Admiral for your incredible service to our great nation. And to the rest of the military out there right now, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, thank you for your service as you protect freedom and democracy around the world. And the same goes to our police and law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, dispatchers, correctional officers, Border Patrol, Secret Service, and all the first responders out there. Thank you for protecting us here at home. And to everyone else out there, think about the impact that you can have. And yeah, think about it, your own life, and you want to have a positive impact in your own life, but think about the positive impact that you can have on others. Think about what you can do by reaching out to people, by supporting them, by doing like Admiral Maguire did for me, by being there for people, by helping them shoulder some of that weight. It isn't about you. It's about the team. So support your team, support your family, your friends, your community by going out there every day and getting after it. And until next time, this is Echo and Jocko. Out.